on today. Before we can see them, we'll see the 6 that we are not. By virtue of a coin flip, Team 1 not only gets first ban, but also first pick, and they'll take Clubhouse, Chalet, and Consulate off the board for Liquid, leaving Cafe, Oregon, and Coastline. Interesting that Liquid would ban out Oregon after how well we've seen them play on it, but Border going for Team 1 and Bank in favor of Liquid. If I'm looking at this matchup, I mean, for both teams, I think they should be happy. If I'm Liquid, I'm feeling comfortable with what we have. The one thing that is going to benefit Liquid most, and this is said of every team that has been together for such a long time, the longer you are together, the more diversity and the more flexibility that you have in map bans.
More strats, too.
And of course, more strats. So when you look at a map like Border and Bank, Bank being among the highest picked in Latin America consistently, and then Border also up there, these are going to be some, not necessarily neutral battlegrounds for both of them, but at very minimum, Team 1 is going to at least have a fighting chance on both of these maps, too.
Very, very flexible maps, ones that are well played. I mean, Bank has, been kind of making a stronger presence this season, especially in NA, for example. But as you say, it's got the lineage of Latin America and EU going back. So it's got a lot of different strats there. Obviously, the meta has shifted a bit, so there's that. But we'll see. Skyscraper, though, maybe for the first time coming out. The only time it was even a possibility was last week in EU when it was the decider. Didn't get to see it. I do hope we get to 3 maps to finally see Skyscraper once this season.
I feel like the very first time we ever cast together, which was before I was in Pro League, and at the time you were not in Pro League either, so just a little bit of a throwback for you. The first real legitimate cast I did for, before heading to Pro League for another league was with this guy right here. You wanted a 3rd map so badly.
I never got 3
and we
maps
didn't get it
at that point. No.
And I know that the first, and the strangest part is I believe both of them were Bank and Border as well in that matchup. So Bank and Border were the first 2 maps we cast together. We didn't get a 3rd that time. We'll see this time. We poll you every single time. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Team Liquid versus Team 1, the community vote. And we'll see exactly where this meter lands. That is quite a difference, to say the least. Team Liquid with 87% to Team 1's 13%.
Just makes me want to see Team 1 win that much more. Just really the underdog spirit at that point. I mean, again, as you said, I think people are kind of sleeping on Team 1 a little bit. Obviously, they need to show up today to continue to prove that that's the case. But they have been, I think, playing pretty well in BR6 as well. So I think if you look at the totality of the season, I'm impressed.
Team 1 is a team that, like you said, it seems like a little bit, just like a couple things away from bursting out. Now, we do this every single week. You want to follow us on either Facebook or on Twitter, you're more than welcome to. Just down below for you, ESL Rainbow 6 spelled out. The 6 is S-I-X, not the number 6. And then the same for Twitter, ESL Rainbow 6 too. The reason why is that you can vote on our MVP when the match is all said and done. There are 4 nominees every single match. Just to let you know, what do you think? Who do you think should be MVP? And then, of course, our community votes. And just generally being updated about things like our scheduling, because the amount of times that I find people will come into a Pro League stream and say, oh, when's the Penta match? Or, oh, when's the Rogue match? When's the Space Station Gaming match? Well, if you follow us on Twitter or Facebook,
just be our friend.
You can answer that question yourself.
But will you?
We don't need to spoon feed you.
No. But thankfully, the game itself now does display at least the Pro League matches coming up in the sense at least advertises one, so that's a blessing. So you can remember, hey, today I should tune in. Although at what time depends on the region.
You can always click in the bottom left. It's really nice. So in the bottom left, there's that little panel when you're in the actual game itself. It cycles through. It'll show you, the latest Elite bundle, particularly. Right now, I think it's still got the Mute Elite bundle instead of the IQ. That's okay. It'll probably get fixed at some point. But other than that, it's got information on new charms, the new SAS bundle as well, and then it's got also the matches for tonight. So little steps just on the way towards promoting esports here. And I mean, when you've got a matchup and people look down in that bottom left corner and they see like the last matchup between Liquid and FaZe, you look down the bottom left hand corner and you don't really have your finger on the pulse of Pro League, and you look and you say,
Liquid and FaZe? What?
Team Liquid and Team FaZe have FaZe Clan and Team Liquid have...
What game did I open?
Have teams in Rainbow Six? What team does Shate play for now? Like those questions you can answer if you...
Eventually they'll just be like the scrolling feed on the side of the screen that just gives you all
just
that,
lets you know. Just
till then, follow.
So map number 1 is going to be on Border. Between these two teams and the way they play, this is going to be Team 1's pick. What are we going to be looking for right out of the gate with the way that these teams play? Are you going to be looking to, if you're Team 1, roam clear as quickly as you can to take Nesk off the board? Are you going to look to maybe pressure site and force Nesk and Zig or Nesk and Bullet to come back? If you're Liquid, are you going to look to try to isolate Panico? What's the deal with border?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you're Team 1, I think a couple of those things you mentioned, I think there's a high chance of seeing Zig playing the pulse down below, for example. So you want to hunt him out because that late pulse with that C4 always a pain. Or at the very least, you're going to want to bait out that C4 or find some other way to stop him from using that. Or get him to use it early, because a pulse down there without a C4 is actually a lot of times, sometimes a hindrance, because he ends up staying alive just long enough to fail to get up to the diffuser in time.
Right.
And so once that C4 is off the board, a lot of times we just don't see the pulses take advantage of that by rotating back. And then Nesk, of course, as you said, he's one of those roamers that almost reminds me a little bit of Falco in a way sometimes, that you don't necessarily know where he's going to be roaming at.
Right.
He's very unpredictable, and I think that's a good thing in a roamer. We see, for example, certain maps, like even Bank reminds me of that, where we see the roam pretty much doing the same thing every time. Oh, in Archives, what an original idea. I'd never seen that before. Whereas a map like Border that has a lot of spots that people aren't necessarily playing when they're playing the bomb site, because it's all about that armory lockers and right below it.
Right.
Well, you know, he could be hiding over in the break room. He could be on just some way off Teller site or something like that. Right. So that's what I would look for, is I would just look to at least section out a slice of the map and say, Nesk's not here. That at least we've got that down, right? So I mean, that's all you can do, because, you know, when it comes to droning out roamers, if you're not following it with a gun, that information's dead in about 2 seconds. So at the very least, if you could just say, like, we're fine over here, we can cut off the stairs. But there is that square lobby where you could vault over, for example, and that leaves a lot of rotation possibilities that don't depend on a hatch and don't depend on stairs, that I think makes this map particularly deadly for a really good roamer.
And I'm not going to name their opponent, but I was speaking with one of the teams and trying to give away as little as possible, because obviously when you speak privately with teams, the last thing you want to do is, you know, be a snitch, for example. I was speaking with one of the opponents of Team Liquid over the last couple months, and they said that their exact focus was literally rewatch as many VODs as possible, figure out where Nesk is, what his patterns are, where he roams, and then just lock him down. And I mean, I'm not going to say whether this team was successful or not, but that is a keen focus of these teams, that they specifically study what his patterns are when he roams. Yeah. And I mean, when you've got one of the best players in the entire world competing against you and can literally just destroy an entire setup of a team, you need to put that much faith in your players to execute a strategy, and you have to put that much stock in making sure that the strategy works out. Because I mean, you feed 3 people to Nesk and he kills them all. Not only were you unsuccessful, because you've also got Bullet potentially roaming, Sexy Cake roaming, Zig roaming, but now you've also lost the numbers advantage quite significantly where they can play for trades. And for me, if I'm Team 1, I'm really hoping that they have studied exactly what they need to on the way that Liquid plays, because Liquid is a team that is still learning new strats, but some of their older ones tend to be a bit formulaic, and you can see that in the way that they defend older sites. Oregon is a great example of the way that they play it, is that their defense tends to be very similar every single time around. Will it be the same on Border?
You know, I mean, there's so many ways to play Border. Yeah, we've seen some creative ways to play bathroom tellers or customs, but how often are we really seeing those anymore? I feel like those kind of more gimmick plays have fallen out, but I mean, we'll see here as we get into game. Hopefully something creative from Liquid.
Yeah, I mean, some innovations will come, and that's one of the best parts of having a newer roster. You know, Team 1 is a new org. It's a roster that was assembled amidst the, you know, that chaos. They were known, I believe, as Roger Eno, if I remember correctly, during the 6 Invitational qualifiers, and they played quite well. They made the Final 4. So this is going to be an interesting match between the teams. Team 1 starting up top. With this site, we've seen a lot of pushes onto the archive side of things. Armory really hasn't been too much in vogue. Last night, there was the seeding matchup between CLG and Honor Among Thieves, and there was a staggering amount of pushes onto Armory wall. And it's weird that ebb and flow between, do you push Armory, do you push Archives? Is that a call that you make midway through the round, or do you go into the round with that strat set in your mind?
Well, I mean, we've seen Office in vogue quite a bit for a while, and it started to fall off again. But the thing is, it is possible to rotate. When you see what the setup is, it is possible to go, okay, they have something set up on that Armory lockers while we're not prepared to counter. We didn't bring a Thatcher, or we don't have a Buck or something that can hit them from below. In this case, for example, they do have a Thatcher, but we have an Echo setting up a deployable shield outside. First off, it's an Echo, which is unusual for the site. To put a shield outside like that and try and peek the Avian's little bird nest up there, interesting choice. And a Glass going to be something something that makes that very difficult to do.
Running the Nesk on the Glass, unsurprising, it is his favorite operator. We've seen him use it a number of times. Latin America home to some of the best Glass players in the entire world. Of course, there are some names that come to mind that don't need to be mentioned just because, well, they're not in this game right now, rather. So you look at Sexy Cake on the Ying. Sexy Cake is usually a very heavily utility-based player. You can frag out, but also you put him on those operators such as Dokkaebi, such as Vigil, such as...
He's reliable.
And he's very reliable. He can get kills on just about anything. He's a very smart player. And putting him on a Ying means that he's going to use those smarts in-game to use her gadget effectively.
Yeah, not going to get killed before throwing his Candelas.
That is very important. And I mean, there's been a lot of times where we see teams kind of try to make that Ying fit, when in all reality, that's not the case. Zig just did something that often gets overlooked. He sees that the bottom of the window is prepped for a jump out, and he backed away. This is something that when newer players say, well, what can I learn? What kind of tips can I learn? What kind of things can I study from? This is why Pro League is so viable or valuable, because you see things that aren't the most viable. Right now, at any moment, iBlax, as an Echo, could potentially jump out the window. A little peculiar first E1D will ensure that the Echo stays in place, and now Zig will just tear the rest of the window off, which deprives them of the ability to jump out. First kill is going to go on to Ion. That was the roaming bandit as Nesk finds his first target, or first victim of this game.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if this Yokai drone can actually stop them out if they try and push archives. They haven't really committed to a specific push just yet, but they definitely are interested in at least holding the archive side, but opening the wall on Locker seems to spell a lot of resources dedicated to pushing on that side, so it most likely just going to be Zig trying to be support from there, but they're spending a lot of resources trying to fight against him, which might backfire because then the Echo's distracted from guarding the actual lockers.
And oftentimes what we see is if you have somebody posted up on vents, you'll usually pinch one or two of the roamers, have people rotate onto that one balcony, the eastern balcony, then push in through the doorway. But smokes from Nesk will go off onto the armory wall. So we have two different points where you said the Echo is being distracted by Zig, but he'll move his Yokai over and just simply wait as now Candelas will go off, and it could be a push in through this doorway. I don't know if the shield is actually going to stop them from going in through the main doorway. A C4 will toss out, and GDN takes out PSK as Bullet takes out Panico, and that is the defuse down as well. So Nesk holds onto it, but they're missing. Nesk is getting the plant off, and just at the last minute, Team 1 with 2 kills will leave Bullet and Sexy Cake with just 10 seconds to go, competing against 3 members of the defense. Bullet will vault in, Sexy Cake gets 1, and he'll have to do the rest all on his lonesome, but he won't be able to. Team 1, a successful first defense as GDN and iBlax, proving to be a good combo, pick up a double kill.
Yeah, GDN staying alive specifically long enough to get that diffuser kill was perfect, because not only did he get it kind of late, which forced them to burn up a lot of time trying to get the diffuse down, they didn't seem to have the right place to put it. They were just focused on trying to stay alive after that C4 kill, which they didn't smoke properly. You could see, for example, he was able to see around the smoke. He had an idea exactly where they're pushing from. That C4 was calculated at that point, hoping to get 2, but getting 1 was more than enough because that was the support for the guys that were inside. So once he got that kill, he was free pretty much to that point to fight them. And they were not really focused on fighting him. There was not a lot of focus on blinding him specifically inside that small office. The smokes were inconsistent in that you had a Glaz and the Ying. You should have been smoking with at least a couple. It seemed like they had some delay to getting the other ones out, pushed too early.
I'm very curious about that shield. And the reason why I'm saying I'm curious is because not a single member of Liquid looked to challenge the shield that was sitting in that doorway, almost as if it was completely blocked off, and they just knew that they couldn't get in through the door. Potentially, one of the deployable shield used in such a way to deny entry, just outright, not even maybe vaultable. I'm not certain. I've actually never seen a shield like that employed in that way. And it was just the Mira that just simply waited for that armory push. And even with the Candelas and smoke going off, it was a bit disjointed for Liquid. And now they'll need better coordination on defense.
Yeah, absolutely lack of coordination was cost in that round. We'll see, though, as we were talking about, we're going to see Zig on that pulse. I imagine probably going to be downstairs providing the intel for his team. We've got a somewhat similar lineup from the attack here, although no Hibana. They're just going to bring a Thermite, but they are going to bring Ion on Zofia to be able to open up at least some soft walls. But the lack of hard destruction means they're going to be forced to fight that wall potentially, or we can see them jump in through the office. However, this wall has got banded on it, so they're going to have to try and do something from below. Although iBlax, I guess, has his shock drone, which is a predictable way to use it. He's going to try.
and see what he can find as he works his way in through there. Just bear with us, that little ticking noise is a recent development with a couple gadgets, including the Yokai drone, so your ears do not deceive you whatsoever. They don't have Nesk roaming, though. They've placed him on an anchor position, and they're relying a lot on Sexy Cake and Zig, with Bullet playing just aggressively off-site on Fountain, with the opposite wall reinforced. Usually you don't see that wall in particular mirrored off the way he has, but because of the way that he's broken the wall to his left, he's going to have a clear sight line farther to the window. I don't know if that's as a smart strategy in regards to the normal way you put a mural. We'll see. We'll have to be the judge ourselves.
Definitely going to play the Sexy Kick. Unfortunately, forced off the wall. Means he's not going to be able to keep the bandit batteries on there, and then he's down. Now they're going to be able to get that wall open. They did lose Twitch in the process, though, unfortunately. But they have Thermite with the diffuser. You hear the wall starting to open. Now they've gotten progress they need. It's still a minute 30 left.
But Bullet's shaking himself away from that mirror and is now just inside of offices watching for himself. It was Ion playing below and gotten a kill. Bullet proves to be a wise move as Panico falls. That's the Lion, and that is no more red light for the defenders to worry about. They can roam freely, and that will mean that both Zig and Bullet's jobs just got a lot easier.
They're going to have to rely on Hugzord to do exactly what we saw Sexy Cake doing last time, to flash them in. But now Ion having to fight the roamer downstairs means they're completely gimped on doing it with 2 attackers left.
And not a chance in the world. Bullet will collect kill number 2. It's all Hugzord trying to work his way in, but oh man, he's taking damage from Bandit Coils, Bullets, and the Toxic Babes, but still, he persists, and he's inside of the site. He will just narrowly avoid getting hit by a C4, but a 3rd kill from Bullet will mean just GDN will be the last one left, and a 4K from Bullet. A hell of a round, and Liquid answers back.
Absolutely. They just couldn't deal with the roam either, and Bullet being back on site there at the end to clean things up. It was just good timing, good play, the way they were spread out. I imagine we had some intel being called out from Zig that we obviously couldn't see as well. That factored into that because they knew where to rotate and win. But it was, yeah, it just seemed a little fumbly on both of those attacks, the same kind of thing, and them having the wall open and just not knowing what to do from there in terms of pressuring it in a way that was very consistent. It was very, I mean, I got to give credit, though, to Hugzord making all the way in, getting all 3 Candelas out, despite his last dying breath being to throw one out, that they just, unfortunately, blinded his teammate of Thermite, so it was unfortunate. They probably needed that Zofia upstairs, though, realistically, for that push. They should have been concussion grenading along with that to help set up for the Candela push, and then maybe Smoke might have not been able to smoke it off as hard as he was.
The only reason why I would keep that Zofia downstairs is to make sure that nobody can possibly put any pressure on the armory wall, but they, at that point, they had full control of it. They didn't need to commit a body downstairs, maybe doing some roam clearing, and then they just got doubled up on. I believe it was Bullet and Zig, both of whom popped out and were able to land shots on Zofia, and Ion just really no chance to be able to fight back. Especially if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but it looked like there was not an ACOG being ran on the Zofia, which means that at longer range you can't take that engagement as reliably. You're at the same advantage, or disadvantage rather, as the rest of the defenders that are ACOG-less. So, Liquid though, we spoke about Sexy Cake deciding to run with operators that are very utility heavy, and a fuse for them.
We rarely see that being effective at the Pro League level, unfortunately. As much as I like the idea, most of the time the best you get is clearing out barbed wire, and with barbed wire being a lot less effective now, the best, I mean, you're going to maybe clear out some goo mines if they're playing Legion. It's overall, there's not a lot of utility on site itself that you're going to clear out. Most people know how to expect the sound and just move completely clear of it. Not to mention, it feels like it's just not as effective as it used to be in terms of killing. However, they are going to at least be running a Pulse and a Castle this time to be able to try and get some idea. So they're going to have some idea when Pulse is, or Fuse is standing still, that he could even get C4'd at this point. So, I mean, they're having a bit out of ventilation, so we haven't seen this yet. As both teams won defense, we're going to see probably ventilation again next round, so we can kind of contrast how these two play that. But we could see either of the other two bomb sites, just less likely. However, of course, you have to see a similar setup here on the armory wall to defend this, but a little bit easier to fight if they can get it cleared.
You're going to defend both sites very similar, and that's exactly what's going on right now. You've also got what appeared to be the castle downstairs with Panico doing some recon work, and that was iBlacks playing aggressively off-site right now currently in Customs, which honestly I wouldn't be surprised to see Liquid go down there next round just because they don't like the most conventional strategies all the time. They haven't been able to put as much pressure, Liquid hasn't been able to put as much pressure rather, upstairs, and you can see it's Ion right now who's holding down the fort with Hugzord up from above. They'll manage to take that armory wall, and Ion moves for just a second, but that is proving to be a problem as he now needs to get out of the site. We'll use the hatch there onto the server stack down in workshop.
Luckily, he can still be half in the room, but he's going to actually rotate all the way down. Probably a smart thing to do, though, is they burn at least 2 minutes off, right? Burning 2 minutes off, staying alive. Fortunately, he doesn't have C4. He went with barbed wire, so not as effective from below, but still got a great gun if he has to fight down to the wire, as long as he doesn't overextend himself here. I can still see this working out for them, but no one has died in 48 seconds left. It's not great for the defense, but those fused cluster charges could change things.
The cluster charges in combination with a buck as well as a lion can prove to be a huge issue. And there we go. There's no escape. The cluster charges will rain down, and the second will go as a Russian symphony hits. And the first target is Ion. He gets blown to smithereens, and Panico losing all but a tiny bit of his health. Hugzord will try to push back against Liquid, but cannot, and his life will be very short. The final cluster charge will rain in the background, and now iBlacks will have to retake the site as GDN finishes off PSK. That's the very first kill for T1. They'll add a second as Panico is able to get a kill through the open hole that has been created by the Thermite, and it's back and forth. Right now, the diffuser not in hand of Liquid. They're just going to run out of time, and a huge bout of miscoordination as Liquid struggles to regain the diffuser, and T1 waits on top of it. They'll take their second round, and that's 3 in a row for the defense.
Yeah, dropping the hatches was absolutely what cost them that round. They had it all the advantage in that point. All they had to do was pressure from multiple sides if they could, or even pressure from angles through the floor. They had the buck to open up the floors. They had the fuse to do some damage down there, make sure there's less utility. They did, I mean, yeah, they softened up the defense, but that was not the time to just commit wholeheartedly to it. But the defense did a good job of at least burning time off, and that's really what forced them to drop hatches. So, you know, that's one of those results of, like, burning time is so important as a defender, because even in an advantage situation like that, they threw it away just due to time.
Yeah, it was really great time management by Team 1 to hold off on Team Liquid. Right now, Liquid is very top-heavy. Zig and PSK have yet to find themselves on the scoreboard. Bullet is the only real reason as a, I guess, a fragger that Liquid is in this at the moment. Similar circumstances for Team 1, though. So right now, both teams being led by individual performances. And of course, that support has been there, but keep in mind, of those 7 kills, 4 of them from Bullet came in one defensive round, largely by himself. I mean, he did have the aid of Zig giving some intel to Bullet to help him rotate, but other than that, it's a pretty noble effort by himself. So now Liquid will go down to workshop ventilations, which you mentioned we would likely see. You were absolutely correct. They will not roll the die on one of the other 2 sites that don't see as much play.
Yeah, interesting. We're seeing mostly the same kind of attacker lineup, obviously minus the fuse, but the defensive setup's a bit different. We're not seeing a pulse, we're not seeing a castle, we're seeing a mute, for example, and they're definitely focusing on making sure they have those cameras upstairs to help their teammates, because what you have, when you have the Valkyrie up there playing and setting up a lot of the cameras upstairs, is now all of a sudden your guys upstairs, let's say you're playing 2, let's say you're playing 3, you have at least 2 people downstairs that could be watching cameras, making those callouts, so those roamers can stay alive and burn that valuable time we were just talking about last round. If they could do the same thing, and then the way Bullet's been fragging, the way he plays Jaeger, I expect if he can stay alive up there with the help from those cameras, could be quite a beast this round.
They've made a couple adjustments. So they put Nesk on a pseudo roamer role with the mute. They've put Zig on site with PSK. Sexicate can also roam if need be. So this shows the flexibility that Liquid has. We see similar things with Team 1. I mean, it's been successful. Team 1 right now has looked strong in both the rounds that they've won and came close a second or a third time rather, and could have potentially been a 3-0.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Team 1 up around, but again, we are trading defensive rounds, so it absolutely could go back to a 2-2 because, well, they started on defense first. But so far, again, we're seeing a repeat of the time being burned, but this time they're entering downstairs, which generally I think probably statistically works more often despite some of the downsides of doing so. But now you've got to deal with Bullet downstairs because Bullet was actually not on the realm, so they've got to be able to push him out of there. And but they're opening up holes in the floor in a way that could be used against them as well. So this is going to come down to whether or not the first frag goes to the attackers or defenders and then collapses from there.
The one good thing about T1's setup is they have a Thatcher that can possibly get rid of those pesky mute jammers. The signal disruptors from Nesk are going to be vital, especially in a hold up top. And I mean, it's unusual. You don't see a lot of mute being used up top, even though there are certain teams that have strategies that work very well to hold that information from the attackers. And right now, certainly does appear that that's the case. As well, a little bit of an unusual setup as Liquid is still working away at the floor to ensure that when Team 1 does push, the fact that they have bodies upstairs, they can counter it by looking down.
Well, at 40 seconds left and the fact that they haven't fought anyone upstairs, that's a very, very big clue that they're not coming. that you need to prepare those angles for downstairs. So the problem is, though, they're going to have to rotate the hatches if they want to get down because they're not getting ready to use the stairs. And this is where it comes down to, if they could take control of the site before the defenders rotate down, it's easy kills, as we saw last round from the attackers dropping hatches.
In the North American matches, another very quick EE1D will go off as Sexy Cake unable to land the hit that he needs to. It softens up iBlack's. All the gadgets from Ying will come out and you can just hear it in the background. But there's 2 seconds left. The plant goes down. Are you kidding me?
What?
They're all still alive. There was 2 seconds left in the round and somehow Liquid permitted T1 to get away with this. A retake in the process, though. As 2 kills will come in, Ion will eliminate 1 for his team, meaning that T1 will answer back. But T1 is locked down Customs, waiting for that cue to start to pressure the diffuser. Both GDN as well as Hugzord will give their positions away, and Liquid have a numbers advantage. It will continue to grow. They are now doubled up, but they are getting scarily close as they're all down. Liquid will win the round despite one of the strangest plays we have seen in quite some time. 2 seconds left. Defuse is successful, all 10 alive. What did we just witness?
The ninja plant. Somehow he just walked in, they were invited in for maybe tea and cookies, got the plant down, and then were unable to defend at that point. I mean, it was a good retake strategy, but it was also not the greatest defense to begin with to let them in there and be forced into that situation. But the defender, I mean, you saw the attackers stacking up, and that was the big problem right there. They stacked up on each other. I was almost waiting for one of them to shoot each other in the back of the head at that point, because you get so antsy when you're defending that like that, because you know they can come from anywhere. You get trigger happy, someone jumps out, you just fire. And that was just not the best play. I mean, Yather might lived a little bit longer, but stacking up like that probably is what costed their ability to defuse that from or defend that from multiple angles, and they just left them there to hit it. But now we've got a Montaigne coming out, so things should get interesting.
Here's an issue, though, that could be, ran into with this Montaigne, is that same setup from Team 1. You've got your Legion, your Bandit. This is the exact same 5 composition that one ran in round number 1, and they used that deployable shield on the doorway to prevent a push through the door of Armory. With the Montaigne, I'm going to go ahead and say that this suits itself far more to an office or an archives.
Yeah, we used to see that, like I'd say almost, it was like year 1, I think, year 1 or early year 2.
Ago.
Yeah, it was a thing for a minute. Maybe they're going to bring it back this round. They do have a Blackbeard, which could be sitting, for example, on the AC or work some of the windows. So there is some good opportunity, even Repel, to help this. Along with the Glass, they're going to have a lot of firepower, at least for the Montaigne to just stroll on over to the door. And it looks like they are focused, as you said, on that archives door.
So what you do is you essentially have the Blackbeard sit up on vents. You prevent a rotate. If there's nobody playing downstairs, or if you've cleared out downstairs, it's very easy for the Montaigne to just walk in, and very eerily similar to the way that stock works on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
You just have the Montaigne stand at the front door and somebody plants behind it, usually in a total shroud of smoke. They will have 6 smokes available for them, as well as potentially all of those flashes from the Blackbeard to clear everything out, and then the Lion will likely have flashes too. So that's 6 gadgets to burn in the ADSs, should there be one. No Jaeger, so there obviously isn't. So they basically gave themselves a setup where they can clear out those ADSs with the 2 operators they need and give so much more value, but the smokes as well. It's 3 flashbangs from Ying. So in theory, I really like what Liquid is doing, but if iBlack takes some own damage, what is that? He takes damage from his own team, and then Ness gets the first kill in a coordinated effort between both Team Liquid and Team 1.
Yeah, that was the problem, is he was caught out in the crossfire, and he was the one who needed to be there to help stop the plant. Obviously, Hugzord tried as well, just ended up hurting his own teammate. That's a good start, though, but Ness carrying the diffuser here on Glass.
Nesk will likely go for the plant. Obviously, I would say probably the least valuable utility of those operators, though, after the Montaigne. Panico taking out the Blackbeard means that the rotate can largely be seen as safe at this point. The C4 is what's going to need to be baited out. All the smoke grenades gone from Hugzord. So really, it's your Nitro Cell that is going to be hinging on this round. And you got Hugzord who can do some fragging potential, and the C4 from GDN in hand. That Velcro will rip, and it'll sail out, but there's nobody there. But Ion takes out Nesk, so the diffuser, no chance whatsoever. And Hugzord now on the Sexy Cake, and this push, they're just feeding bodies into Team 1, and there's nothing there to stop it. The smokes now will come out from PSK, and he will have to do this himself, as he at least holds the diffuser. He'll go for what's been called the turtle plant with the shell on his back, and in the doorway, getting a plant off. PSK taking no damage at the moment as all those shots rattle off. He'll get finished off by Hugzord, but now Zig will have to clutch. No clutch from Zig. Team 1 will regain the lead in the defense. 5 rounds, 5 defensive holds. Border anything but ordinary.
Felt like trophy window right there, just throwing them right through that one door. I mean, they had, obviously losing the Blackbeard was the crossfire that they had on that, but they had no other attack. They could have at least been attacking offices, maybe try to put some pressure there to come in. If they were able to take Fountain, for example, then they've got another cross. You saw where Hugzord was hiding. Obviously can't hide there if they've got pressure from Fountains. It was just so one-dimensional, and you saw Zig just hanging back practically at spawn his line, which is great early in the round, but that late in the round, he should have been possibly even the one planting at that point. But it was a great start and a horrible finish, I would say.
For me, what I would have done was move the glass over to vents.
Yeah.
Because then when you have all the smokes down, the Blackbeard can't see through that smoke. At that point, you know your strategy is going to be very smoke heavy. You know it's going to rely on one C4 if they've been counting the smoke grenades, which they likely have. So they know that the smoke canisters from the smoke are all gone. All right, so now you know that the only way that they can stop you, other than rushing you, which a glass through smoke can counter quite easily,
yeah,
you have a C4, and that's really it at that point. Now, it didn't look like there was anybody below, but I mean, Team 1 certainly had the bodies to keep somebody posted down there if they need be, but I mean, the only operator on that entire team that had access to a C4, unless Bandit took one, was the Mira who was playing. So if you use that C4, you really don't have much of a chance after that to be able to stop them, unless you push, which Ness could have been able to stop.
Yeah, they, like you said, they just kept feeding the machine, and again, defense, defense, defense. So the question is, can Liquid continue that, or will Team 1 finally break it? Because if so, that will put it at a 4-2, which often leads to a win, and we could see Team 1 actually really surprising here by coming out ahead, as they have been ahead continuously because it's been tit for tat, and they started first on what has seemed to be the favorable side. But the fact that both teams are winning both sites here seems to me that it's more just about these attacks being very uncoordinated, very one-dimensional. They're all about coming in one single spot and dying doing it. The first team to just maybe quit that bad habit of, you know, like I put it, throwing themselves through trophy window will probably be the team to win an attack round.
Yeah, I'm wondering why there's so little pressure onto the other sites. Liquid will use basically the exact same setup that they used before as well. Same operator, same positions, all of that. But now they've got Sexy Cake playing the Echo, which Echo on this site, all right, I can see an Echo on Border, maybe downstairs at absolute most. Even then, there's not really a lot of opportunity on Border to stay stationary for too long, just simply because of the way that Border works and the rotates that can be made. So both these teams running an Echo, though.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, we've seen some confusing things, but this also confuses me. I mean,
yeah. Interesting to see them using the strat where they hit the floor with Sophia and then use the Twitch drone from below to not have to expose yourself. So.
And that's a rogue strategy too.
Yeah,
so you got to give some credit to Ranger, his coaching, and the rest of his team. Of course, Rogue being the North American team who we will be seeing in Atlantic City. They'll square off against Evil Geniuses either next week or the week after for first and second place in the region. Look at that pixel angle from Sexy Cake. And he's going to look away, knowing that there's a drone. It's well coordinated.
There we go.
He sees it, but he can't connect. Oh, he doesn't land any of his shots.
ADS just saved his life too, potentially.
The smoke had gone off to repel or rebuff the attackers. I don't know what it is with the pacing of this matchup, but once again, we are hitting the final minute mark, and every single operator is still alive. Though, T1 is taking up more room. They are able to get closer to the site. Last time around, it was Bullet who got the 4K. You can't rely on him to be getting all the frags this time around.
Now, Nesk needs to be on top of this. GDN played a very good mirror in that closet. Nesk is going to have to do the same thing because he's the first point of contact there. If he can stay alive, it's pretty much impossible to take that site.
30 seconds will be approaching very, very soon. Sexy Cake's Yokai drone positioned onto the armory wall, and Bullet, who had a hot hand last time, sees the Lion and all of his what appears to be camping gear on his back, just at the doorway of Fountain, waiting to see if he'll push in. Here it comes as an EE1D goes off. Everybody frozen in place. Bullet is primed and ready. It looked like he moved for just a second. He gets spotted. So his position is given away. They know that he's pushed off of that Mira, and that Mira might not be as valuable anymore. But Bullet will exchange words with the Lion, and right now they need to get the plant. A huge C4 from Nesk, as it is all Liquid and no chance whatsoever. A three-piece from Nesk will once again tie things up. And that explosive came out of nowhere and stopped T1 in its tracks.
You got to kill that small office, and we're not seeing them figure out how to do that These teams at this point, unless they have a better coordinated attack to clear people out of that, because that's been the big point of weakness, they need to start attacking offense at this point. You need to have a plan B strategy. Neither of these teams seeming to have it. They're just doing the exact same thing over and over with minor tweaks at best. And at this rate, we're just going to see back and forth between top floor and ventilations. However, this means Team 1 is going to be on a match point first. So if they can just do 2 in a row at this point, they win the map and move forward to the next map, which this was their map pick. So of course, Liquid picking the next map means, you know, maybe it might not be that close, but at least Team 1 showing, if nothing else, neck and neck here with Team Liquid, one of the biggest Brazilian teams.
So a fight being brought out from Team 1, and I mean a community that thinks there's only, what, 13%?
Yeah, this is not a 13% fight.
This is not a 13% fight by any stretch of the imagination. Sexy Cake had been playing the Blitz, will be moved from a previous matchup, had been playing the Blitz, will be moved on to a Twitch. And this time around, it's Nesk who will be bringing the shield. Now, a smart move to potentially take all that fragging potential on an operator and put him on a shield, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a strategy that they have in mind here. Sensei is a very good coach, and he's the one that's overseeing Liquid to make sure right now that they're doing things to the best of their ability, and also, whether it works or not, it's at least keeping Team 1 on their toes.
Absolutely. It's definitely potential to work here. I think Nesk has done some okay work with Blitz, but we usually see Sexy Cake on the Blitz, so it does make me wonder why they changed up. I mean, obviously, you got plenty of fragging power on that FAMAS for Sexy Cake to use, but unless Nesk is uncomfortable, I would definitely put that on. I would switch those around for sure, just because Sexy Cake has shown he can play that Blitz just fine, and I can't imagine Nesk is terrible on the F2.
They've also, if you've noticed as well for Liquid, they've also been using the Thatcher as their entry fragger, which is so bizarre. It's not a, you know, the thing is that with operators such as Thermite, Hibana, you know, Twitch, Ashe, well, I mean Ashe, of course, Thatcher, is that once their job is done, your whole job is to get kills after that. And I mean, that's exactly how they've been using Bullet. We've seen similar things from T1 in the way they've been playing the Zofia of Ion. They've been using Ion to try and get those kills. Success has obviously varied. Yeah. But at the same time, still, long gone are the days of Ashe being your main entry frag.
And not even a Hibana here. As you saw earlier from the stats, we're actually at almost close to 50-50 between Hibana and Thermite in Latin America, so they're definitely, I feel in the frag mine a bit more. And interesting, you saw a castle barricade on that door. Interesting choice in terms of trying to stall that out even longer. As we saw, I think last time it might have been iBlax who was left with the lone castle barricade and nothing to do with it, might have decided, hey, I'll just throw it there. That seems like a good spot, and it is. They're not in yet. Again, getting close to that minute mark, 5v5.
Not sure what Zig was trying to accomplish there in his positioning on the vents. Maybe there was a run or a jump that he was looking at. He will just light up Archives. There's nobody there, though Hugzord will give his position away for a moment. The smoke retreats into Armory, and Panico will get lead-off kill onto Nesk. So that gamble on the Blitz does not pay off at all.
Definitely a gamble.
And Sexy Cake is down now 2, so that change has basically taken 2 off of the board for you. Ion will now break the castle barricade and potentially go for a run out onto the balcony just by Armory Wall. There's nobody waiting for him, as all the rest of Liquid have completely spread out. They'll have to go to drone work because their push has been stopped at this point.
Seems like the change-ups on attack so far not working, because 42 seconds left and a huge mana disadvantage. Not even great attackers left, and there goes one defender at least, but it's the Pulse. It's not the most important one in this defense left. So it's a very good chance Team 1 could continue this defensive trend. They've got more than enough utility. They've got smokes. They've got Bandit on his gun. They've got the ump as well. And a nice kill by iBlax to make it 4-2. At least traded back, though, by Bullet.
I find that the 3v5 is the least solid hold that you can have, and that we routinely see it balance out at some point, whether it just be through playing for trades or teams getting particularly aggressive. PSK almost gets one. He knows that there's a drop from above. PSK can capitalize. He takes out Hugzord, but is he there to trade off? No plant whatsoever, and for the umpteenth time in a row, just an inability to get the diffuser down will be the story of that round, and Team 1, as you said, will move to match point. Not a single attacking round victory so far.
You know, we started this season so attacker heavy, but the one region that's proven defense still has something, at least, maybe it's just a weakness of attack, is Latin America. We saw it time and time again, as I talked about it before. Clubhouse is a map that's usually so attack heavy, yet in Latin America it seems fairly balanced. And again, these one-dimensional attacks, at least that time they were trying to work on a bit more dimensionality in terms of attacking the top and the bottom, but at the same time it seems so uncoordinated, and then once they lost, as you are talking about, kind of the spearhead players of Nest and Sexy Cake, they seemed completely lost at that point and just looking for frags at best. Didn't have anything left to do. So, once again going on Vents, this technically should be Team 1, in theory, having this in the bag because they're attacking the weaker site. They've you know, at least making some change-ups on what they're doing. iBlack's bringing a sledge now, so he'll be able to open the floor and use some frags like we've seen from Buck. But Latin America, we seem a bit more comfortable with sledge than Buck.
Though we did see Nesk running the Buck. And I mean,
Oh, he's good, though.
Buck, Sophia, and Thatcher have appeared to be like 3 of the most potent entry operators over Ashe this season. We live in some bizarro world where Ashe, the purest killing machine in this game, has lost her throne. I mean,
that's without a single real nerf.
Have we even seen an Ashe so far in this match?
I don't or a Hibana. I think we've seen this very much, the pick rates really falling off here in this, at least this matchup between these. Obviously, next map probably going to be a little bit different, but this map has been interesting. We have seen at least a few shakeups. So
Panico has been having a good day. Most of these players have. It's fairly even on both teams. Hugzord, though, leads the way in depths. And as Ying, you cannot add to that statistic right now. It is imperative that out of the 5 operators, I would argue your Thermite and your Ying need to stay alive. I mean, Lion, it goes without saying, but I mean, just a Lion by itself is not enough to stop them. A Lion with a Ying combined with the fact that a Thermite has taken control away from the defenders, now that's really something to talk about. But last time we saw this strategy being run by both of these teams, the plant went down with 2 seconds with every single member of both teams still alive. For Liquid, it will need to be a faster rotate and just simply having somebody there to check the corner. That is the default spot by that metal workbench to get the plant down.
I think at this point, if you, again, end up at a point where they're not attacking the top floor, you see that, you need to rotate at least 1 more person down. Keep 2 upstairs, okay, if they've got good angles and they can watch the entry points, because they're obviously not dropping hatch, right, because they're not attacking the top, so you know they've got to come in doorways or blow that bathroom wall. So you know where they're coming from. There's 3 possible entries they could use. You watch all of those, and you drop a man down. You leave 2 upstairs if you need to, but you leave ones who can work well from upstairs, or even throw a C4 down, potentially. But otherwise, rotate, because they're obviously going for the downstairs again. They've made no mystery of that by the fact that they haven't tried anything upstairs. And once you get to the minute-and-a-half mark, if you haven't seen anyone, that's a big clue.
Now, 2 drones being used and thrown at Bullet as he dispatches both of them. Waiting to see if he will potentially get pushed. It's Sexy Cake who does, and T1 finds themselves starting off their attack to break this spell of defender victories in order to put this map away in a 5v3. But now Zig will answer the call, but there's nobody as you see T1 pull back. That's what they needed. They got the pick. All right, you've won that fight. Now regroup and start with the push. That'll force PSK to use one of his Toxic Babes. Pretty good timing, though, all things considered, because now he's got about 30 seconds to use 2 more. Given the hang time of that, that could be a potential area denial for the defenders.
There's a big area to cover, though. He's got to cover the right doorway, right entry, and they have hatches they could drop if they can get the kill onto the Mira, for example, but smokes are getting used now for both teams. They're going to have to make this push in 13 seconds to go, and Lions have gone out.
Nesk is ready to drop. Can they get the plant off in time? PSK jumps in. He'll stop the diffuser, though, this time. And even though control is in favor, 2 big kills for the smoke. He just needs to stop the diffuse for another second. Liquid manages to win the round, and the defensive holds will continue. We go to overtime with not a single attacker victory over 8 rounds.
I feel like we're watching Vitality play Border again at this point. It's just the back and forth that we saw was very similar from one of their Border matches earlier in the season. It's just been... But, you know, oftentimes when we see this go back and forth like this, a lot of times this is the tipping point. If it's not the round before this, it's now, because teams have gone, okay, what we were doing before, stupid. It's not working. We need to make a change up. Yeah, you have that brief moment where, I don't know, just something about overtime kind of triggers that in your head that you need to think differently at this point, because you've let it get to this point. You've let it get to the point where now it's anyone's game yet again, but it's going to go only to 3 rounds. So if you go tit for tat, whoever goes defense first is now at the advantage. So Liquid, theoretically, at the advantage now. That means Team 1 are really just going to have to go, you know what, stop doing stupid stuff. Assuming that's what they go, unless they just get heated and go, let's just all run in instead.
So Team 1 will now have their 2nd opportunity in a row to correct the mistakes that they have made on attack. And when I say mistakes, it's because there's been a lot of mistakes from attack from both teams. I hesitate to say that this has been a defensive showcase, because there's been a lot of big missteps for both teams on attack. Inabilities to drone, lack of coordination, scrambling on time management due to ineffective roam clears, issues with improper rotations from the defenders that have not been picked apart by attackers. There's a lot of stuff that's happened that we are privy to that they're not, that I think swings us in favor too. The defense hasn't really looked so good, it's just the attackers have not looked as where they need to be.
We have seen at least a little bit of more spread on the attackers. So the last few rounds, we have seen them starting to adapt. For example, we saw last time the line creeping around upstairs and actually putting some fear in them, so they couldn't just sit there and stare at the floor as the defenders. So they are slowly making those changes, but it's so slow that we're now in overtime because of them, without a single, even semi-successful attack other than that one ninja plant. That was probably the closest thing we've seen to a successful attack so far. They just couldn't defend it.
And that was that I almost was assured at that point.
It felt like
that was going to be the first attacking round win, and no, it was snatched away from Liquid. That has to be a amount of praise leveled at Liquid, because that was a very strong retake, of course. So I don't want people thinking that it's just looked like the defensive looked lousy. There's been some pretty spectacular moments from the defense so far.
Yeah, but 8 rounds of them.
Yes, and I mean there's plenty of footage here for them to look, both teams to look at and say maybe our attack could use some work. So if you're coaching either of these teams, well, you've got some footage for you. This is actually, this does appear now that we will see Hibana for possibly the first time.
Good point.
And the reasoning behind this, for me, is this is going to be an office push. They're going to try to thermite the wall. They're going to use the Hibana to take care of the mirrors. They're going to put pressure, potentially, on both Fountain as well as offices at the same time. And then likely have somebody playing in CCTV, but you just saw that doorway got taken out by Sexy Cake, and that is Liquid trying to take away some of the possible maneuverability that you could have from Team 1 onto CCTV.
And they are going to at least clear out that office mirror first, because once that's down, you can clear out Fountain. Once you can clear out Fountain and Thermite can get in to open up the wall into Archives, it's very easy from there. But Zig just hanging out in here is going to be a big problem. That wall is always a great defensive point, and he does clear the X-Arrows off. That was great.
And that's 2 rounds that have now been wasted. So, I mean, T1 will decide, hey, maybe because of how much of a problem these mirrors have been, let's bring the utility of Hibana, and unable to do it. But Team 1 is getting a plant off. They have bull rushed in, Liquid unable to answer. Hugzord takes out Nest, and the diffuser is successful, and unbeknownst to Liquid, they will have to go for the retake. Zig runs out, takes out Panico as Iblax manages to destroy Sexy Cake. And oh my, Hugzord had gotten a kill earlier on. He will sustain some damage, and he'll be down. And he'll be finished off by PSK, who will need to use all of his tools available. But no, Ion unable to solve the problem. They're working away at the diffuser, and right now Liquid look primed to be able to get it. And they're just banging and banging and banging, but Iblax take it out, and this will be Liquid once again winning it for the defense. When, oh when, will the attackers get on the board?
I will give it to Team 1. They can get a plant down. Step 1 accomplished. You are named Team 1. Now you need to be Team 2 and accomplish Step 2 of keeping that diffuser alive. But it was the angles. You saw the angle of not being able to come in the door, the angle at the window. It was all about the angles. They didn't have any extra utility like grenades or something else to be able to stop them. And that's the thing, is they don't have a post-plant plan, and you can see that by the fact that they're just fighting it, because where they plant the diffuser, yeah, seems great in theory, but they obviously haven't practiced it or set it up enough to be able to counter it. And 2 defenders, one hitting and the other just crossfiring, is more than enough to take out 2 attackers to stop it.
So for our stat trackers, here's some interesting stats for you. Armory has gone 6 times. And the defensive numbers are 6 for 6. And Workshop has gone 4 times, and the defensive numbers for Workshop are 4 for 4, which means that, Armory rather, we actually haven't seen the one. So I'm going to even it's 5 for 6 because this one's not over yet.
Yeah.
But the defensive round victory right now is 9 for 9, 100%. We'll see if Armory can make it 10 for 10. And I am hard pressed at this point to really say what the attackers need to do, because you're right, there was really no post-plant scenario there. I mean, it's one thing when you're working on sites that have an opportunity for you to sit and watch the plant. An example on Cafe. At Cafe, you can just sit on the skyline if you're attacking Bar Cocktail and just have a line of sight onto the diffuser at that point, and you're in a good position. But Border is really not a map where you can spread out 5 attackers and all hold off separate angles without getting overrun by the defense one by one or all at the same time.
You need those claymores, especially if you want to be able to hold pulse plant, because just the angles they can run around on you. You saw some claymores going in there, for example. But the problem is now Liquid have the advantage because they get 2 defensive rounds. So unless Team 1 can figure out their attack next round, even if they win this defensive round, they're on the off foot, and then they go with a loss on their map over to Team Liquid's map.
I mean, we saw how crucial having good map choices works for Black Dragons. They were slapped on their first map away 5-1, or swatted away by a 5-1, and then just had to stretch out that loss on Oregon on their matchup, which is one of Black Dragon's best maps, bar none. And I mean, the fact that FaZe let them get it through the map phase showed their confidence in it. I think that confidence was very well placed.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation here where I don't know how map number 2 will going to go, because Liquid just have not, I don't know if they were just not as prepared for this map or what, but they should not be at this point right now, but at least the coin flip favored them.
So we see a stack up on CCTV monitors and then into the armory side of things. PSK as the thermite is going to be crucial here. And with the smoke going down, an early smoke used so Ness can possibly get some covering fire. He'll retreat just in case they bother to push. Last time around, it was Team 1 battling back by pushing that open area, that gaping maw of the armory wall. As you can see, Zig will get a drone into place. I like this. He's trying to make sure that he has a line of sight and an angle to help. He's playing the ultimate support operator as Lion, and now also working with the drone to support too. A couple rotations as Liquid will tag in and tag out. Sexy Cake will go to the forefront, likely to get those Candelas and smokes down onto the main wall, and that's exactly what they'll do. But they will squander that Lion. They basically just used the 4 seconds of red light and didn't accomplish much on their own as they were still mid-rotate.
Yeah, it's almost just to cover the rotate at that point because they didn't have to watch their back. But yeah, as you said, that was a big wasted, because they still haven't even gone with their Candelas yet. Finally, those are going to come out with 38 seconds left, and GDN has been a beast in this room, but they finally blind him this time.
Ion is in there with him, but Hugzord is going to be a huge factor. He has a ton of smoke grenades. He'll smoke default, and then he'll smoke just by sandwich. A C4 from GDN. You said a beast. He will blow things open, and Zig gets one, but Liquid looks strong. Oh no, a team kill! But Ion and GDN are down. It's all iBlacks and Panico, as it's a 3v2 for Liquid. Panico gets one on the stairs, and it's 2-2. The diffuser needs to be picked up. They only have 10 seconds. Panico tries to retake the site. The glass is down. Zig will have to get the plant off and do it all himself. And it's T1, another defensive victory, and we are 10 for 10 on defense. Oh my word.
This feels like that EG versus SSG match where it's like, are they going to break the trend on the 11th round? Can Team 1 do it? Because, so the thing is, yes, no one has broken it yet. But the team that's come the closest by far has been Team 1 because they've gotten 2 plants down. They've been so close, but just without that post-plant thing, I feel like Liquid are almost baiting them into that, though. They're letting them get in those situations where they're set up for the retakes, and it's been working. If they could just figure out, hey, we just need to figure out how to cover it from some better angles, maybe they can make it work. They have Ninja planted both sites now.
And we'll see if they can do it yet again. Though, one thing that was a big deal last time was, I believe PSK on the smoke was playing inside a bathroom, could not be dislodged. He was able to go through the rotate hole into Workshop, got 2 kills, both on the planter, and then the other member, which I believe was Hugzord, who was rotating to pick up the diffuser. That was a crucial moment for Liquid. For Team 1, they just need to use that smoke to their advantage. Both these teams don't seem to be using the smoke effectively. They're throwing the smoke down, and I mean, it's puzzling. They toss the smoke down, and then the smoke almost works against them because a whole bunch of magazines and C4s get dumped into the smoke, and there's no way for the other team, the attacking team, to battle back.
Yeah, it seems like it's just been a big problem for Latin America in general, is using smoke the way we expect to use it in other regions. And this is an interesting peak here. They are bringing a blitz this time from iBlacks, so that should be interesting.
The first blitz that comes out in favor of Team 1. They tried it for 1 round with Nesk. It did not work in any real shape or form. The blitz died very early on. It was the first casualty for Team Liquid. Of course, that is improper usage of a shield. So we'll see if iBlacks can have any better success for his team. Let's keep in mind that every single round has gone in favor of defense. We don't need to say it again. If you're brand new and you're tuning in, the attackers have not won at all. Team 1 will have to do something that nobody has done, which is just win 2 rounds in a row. That has also, of course, not happened yet by nature of the back and forth round swaps that currently exist. A double drone escort for iBlacks, as one will head in towards offices and towards archives, while another will find and scope out Fountain. Now, most of this defense will be based upstairs. You can see the mute jammers, which has actually worked very well. Nesk's positioning of these mute jammers have seemed to frustrate Team 1 and has forced them into those late plants, as you said, almost as if Liquid's been baiting.
They have been doing a lot better job this round, I would say, doing the actual droning and managing to avoid the jammers, stopping them completely from getting the positions. For example, they did see the 2 players in this room. They're going to continue to drone it and use that information for this push. The question is, are they ready to act on information? Because you saw them sitting 3 men on their phones, not accomplishing anything for a whole minute. So at least they're being careful, but like we saw some good drone positioning earlier where we saw them jumped up on shelves, things like that. If they've got some of those positioned, I can see this working. But as I said before, that information expires.
Sexy Cake will have to stop just outside of break room, position in monitors, waiting for him to join the fight. PSK will need to be taken out, or else Liquid will be in very good position to stop this. The one thing about Blitz's speed, though, that he has done is Sexy Cake gets the first kill and Hugzord goes down. He'll get pushed by the Blitz, but there's 2 to jump in. The shield gets swatted away, and that is all she wrote as Liquid looks to retain. But no, the magazine will run out for Zig. And Ion is there. He'll get dispatched by Nesk, and 4-2. Another will go after them. Who's up next? It looked like it was going to be Panico, but it's GDN trying to hunt him down. He takes the head off of Nesk, a 3v2 with 30 seconds. GDN has very low health, though, does have the diffuser, but is, at this point, potentially 1 to 2 shots away while plant and very vulnerable.
They still got to get downstairs as well. Unfortunately, the misses through the hatch, that's going to cost him his position being known now. He needed that information because GDN at least getting a frag to start things off and a potential plant here.
The smoke giving his position away through the floor. Panico tries to take out Sexy Cake, cannot land all of them. He'll wait for the drop. Where is the smoke? Sexy Cake takes out GDN. It's all up to Panico. No! Liquid will hold on, and we will go 11 for 11 on defense, and Liquid steals Team 1's map away from them as Bank awaits us with Liquid up 1-0.
That was an unfortunate, I mean, I hate to say it was decided by the coin flip, but just the fact that neither of these teams could adapt to attack, it was, unfortunately. Liquid coming out on top despite not being able to succeed on attack, but it shows that Team 1 are not a team you want to take to border in the future.
I don't want to be the one offside when I say this, but after 11 rounds, can you really blame a coin flip for 2 teams' inability to win 1 attacking round? No, at that point, I think at that point, as maybe unpopular it may be for a coin flip to decide who starts where on what side for overtime, I think a pretty credible argument is a coin flip is really not going to determine that much when you can't win a single attacking round. And I mean a single because the attackers won 0.
But it's unfortunate because you had a team that was the closest to winning an attack round.
Right.
Unfortunately, at the end of the day, not the winner. And that's, yeah, and it's their map too. And so, like I said, maybe they didn't win this. Maybe it just didn't work out in their favor. Maybe, yeah, they should have adapted on attack, but they got the closest 3 times, as you said. And unfortunately, just that last inch is what just screwed them over. And now they've got to have to make up for it on Liquid's map. In the future, I wouldn't take them to border, but at the same time, Team 1 just need to figure out how to adjust for those attacks. And if they can, that's going to be a very, very good map for them. But they've got to get through this match here if they want to get further. And I don't expect Liquid to be giving up much on this particular site. And I feel like we probably could see a very strong 5-2, 5-3 from Liquid if they're really on form. And they've warmed up now on Bank. It's I don't know. I mean, Team 1 could have some really good strats we're just not seeing. But if we see 11 more rounds of defense,
and let's think about Bank as well, because every single time you're going to try to fight over the basement of Bank on CCTV, and when you're down CCTV and lockers downstairs, basically the plan always works exactly the same.
Yeah.
Blow open that panel, try to get a plant next to the desk, bait out 3 smoke bags, bait out potentially 2 C4s, maybe bait out a yokai, and then eventually, once all your EE1Ds are done, your potential Candelas, smokes, etc., once you've literally wasted all of the utility, both the attackers and the defenders, then if you're still alive, you can get a plant off successfully. And I mean, it's going to be a defensive struggle for both these teams, as I can imagine this trend is probably going to continue. The only real question mark is if Liquid feels particularly confident in this map, how they're going to play on attack. Because if you go back 2 seasons when they were still known as BRK, they used to eat teams alive on Bank.
Absolutely, yeah.
So going up against Team 1, if Team 1 is not as well practiced, I could see Liquid still doing well on defense, but also capitalizing on a couple attacking rounds. And I mean, even 1 attacking round would have made the complete and total difference on the previous map.
Here's the interesting part, though, is, yeah, they're going to win those bottoms most of the time, right? The bottom defense is so good. And, of course, you've got the power of Pulse from Zig.
Right.
Very effective on that particular bomb site. So he's going to be playing that to a T. But the real question mark for me is the secondary bomb site. So on Border, probably going to see ventilation most of the time. On this particular map now, maybe seasons past, I would say, okay, you're probably just going to see Teller's Archives. But I feel like that's really changed. CEO has really kind of developed an interesting set of strategies around it. Every once in a while, someone will try open. So I feel like, unlike Border, it can't count as much on the secondary bomb site being as good. Right. So the question is, will that be a chance for Team 1 to finally get some attacking win rounds if they can win on those particular bomb sites? Because, yeah, you win all the bottom ones as Liquid, you're still forced to switch every time, unlike if you win on attack, where you're not forced to switch anything.
And, I mean, but with CEO, how much of CEO has been regional? Because North America has loved CEO. Europe has liked CEO, but not as much as we see North America recently.
We've seen them borrowing from Rogue. And this is a map that Rogue developed some interesting new strats that they used. I mean, maybe they didn't pioneer them, but we saw them definitely debuting here quite a bit. That upstairs CEO defense, as well as some interesting open area defenses. So if they're going to continue to bite off Rogue, we still might see those. But as you said, yeah, it hasn't been a huge regional thing, but maybe we'll see it this time, maybe we won't. If not, then Team 1 are actually, I think, in an off position. They need to have something in their bag that trips up a team that's been so good on this map.
So we saw some great performances from Panico, from Ion, from Nesk, from Bullet, the usual suspects, the supporting cast, which don't really get given the same amount of, I guess, attention. Somebody suggested to the offensive lineman in the NFL how much space you create for your team and how important you are on that front line, but never show up on the scoreboard. And it's, you know, you're not getting touchdowns. You're not throwing touchdowns. You know, you're not doing what you know, the sexy things, so to speak, that show up. And I mean, take a look at a player like Sexy Cake. We can talk about, you know, the word sexy for a second here. He puts up a lot of contributions that don't show up on that scoreboard. Even Hugzord had some pretty big moments. And I mean, despite the fact that he did unfortunately lead the game in deaths, was still crucial for some of that utility and drone work too. If you saw, Hugzord was doing a huge amount of drone work for his team. And that is something that goes very unnoticed, is how much intel is gathered from good droning. I know we say the drone economy, which is a kind of a funny tongue-in-cheek term, but it completely matters. If you have those drones available to you late in the round, your chances of capitalizing on an attack go up so high because you can still gather that information. And
we saw Zig trying to do a similar thing. He'd be playing that Lion at spawn almost some of the time. He'd be that kind of droner. And I think that's a good role for a Lion player. As I said before, we started the matches, that Zig is all about getting that information for his team and being very vital in that. At least he's staying alive and doing so. And I think where we're seeing Hugzord struggle is he's still having to play roles where he needs to get into the fray, and he's dying doing it. So if you compare that to someone like Sexy Kick on Ying, we're seeing a little bit more reliable usage of it, a little bit smarter play in terms of how he's using, say, smokes or the Candelas. So I think it's just a case of maybe he either needs to stick to those particular roles he's playing, meaning Hugzord, and refine them a little bit better. Maybe look at how other people are playing them a little bit more effectively and not getting, as you said, the most amount of deaths on the team. And making sure when he's getting that drone work done, he's also able to follow that up with something else. You know, like you said about Thatcher, where, you know, you get your Thatchers done, you can follow that up or be a Fragmite or whatever. We're just not seeing that out of him. And I think also his smoke play has not been the most reliable. I don't think he's a bad player, and I'm not trying to badmouth him. I just think there's room for growth in Hugzord, and I think he's a player that can do it. But I don't know whether or not he's been given that opportunity on Team 1, because we don't know what the dynamics are like within the team. However, I do think at least a lot of the rest of the team has been showing up. GDN showed up pretty well, as we were talking about before, and I think that's been a good strength, and that's why they were able to stay neck and neck, because we didn't really have anyone slacking for the most part, despite what we said about Hugzord. He still showed up to an extent, did his job a lot. So the fact that we saw the spread among both teams is why we saw the neck and neck. But there were, as you said, the people with the double digits that were clearly on top, people like Bullet, that were definitely showing up more so than others. Yeah, and GDN as well. And I think it wasn't the Nesk show today, and that was nice to see, but it's not like we didn't expect Bullet to show up.
And GDN got a lot of those kills playing support. Let's keep that in mind. As did Nesk. They were both playing the mirror role, which is pivotal on you know, Border. They're playing in that small officer ticket booth, and they're able to, you know, get those C4s out. Both teams relying heavily on those when those armory pushes would happen. The C4 stopped it almost every single time, and that's crucial to be able to land that. I mean, now, given most players are going to plan in an area in which that explosive rate
is a small room.
It's a very small choke point, but
well, this is a region that we've talked about before that is all about using those C4s. I'm not even surprised to see them not be able to use smokes very effectively, because they've been so dependent on using C4s to stop plants that it is to me, not a big surprise to see, for example, the Mirror play having so many kills, even if it's just one kill with the C4, being consistent. And the Vector, I don't think we talked about this enough. Maybe it's, you know, it's long range, it's not the greatest, but that thing is a killing machine at short range. If you can land your shots, the rate of fire is just insane. And as long as you can conserve your ammo, control your fire, you can get an easy 2 frags out of it. As we've seen time and time again, you have great players, like you've talked about Shate in the past, for example, that are just beasts on that. And I think that's undervalued, especially in a role like that small office, where it just becomes a kill box if you don't overextend yourself. If the other team is playing, as we've seen, weak attack, it's a situation where you could absolutely capitalize on that. You get a free C4 kill. You get the ability to just whip that Vector around this big smoked area where there's a good chance. I mean, obviously, we're seeing them sometimes not firing low enough, but overall, just spraying that around there with that high rate of fire, there's a good chance you're going to at least do some damage, if not a kill.
So we're just readying up. We'll be able to launch into the game in just a moment for Bank, and we'll see how these teams are going to compete. Now, a couple things about Bank that play very differently from Border. Number one, it is one of the largest, I don't want to say the largest map because I don't know the exact square footage of it, but it is certainly one of the largest maps in the entire ranked pool. It's a huge, huge map. Not just the basement, the garage, everything about it, the first floor, the second floor. It's an enormous map, lots of roaming potential. For a team that has strong roamers, a team, when you look back, Elevate from a couple seasons ago, who actually bested this team on Bank earlier on because of their, in large part, their roam play. This is a map that excels on your roam play. The only issue is that when you go on deep roams, you need to make sure that you have that really strong sight hold, because there's a good chance that your roamers could end up being ineffective if there's a quick push onto site. So it's interesting the way that the rhythm of the map plays, because if you don't invest a lot of opportunity into hunting down those roamers, you can force them to retake in positions that you can defend from that on Border you can't. That's just because of the size.
I mean, and that's the thing, is like, will we see a repeat of the ability for Team 1 to get the plants down and then for Liquid to be able to retake it? Because what you're describing right there sounds like similar to what we saw on Border. However, as you said, the angles are different and things will work differently. And for example, you're going to get Jackals and things like that coming out. Blitz works a little bit differently on this map, so does Glaz. They're both still played, but in different ways than what we see in Border, because the site push is not so direct as you see on a Lockers or Office, for example.
You mentioned going to CEO, how popular it has been. Well, yes, the language on the bottom is indeed in Portuguese, but CEO knows no language nor translation, and that will be site number one. Also, just as a side note, while it was showing the intro to Bank, the chat was robbed of the opportunity to see that Waterboy-Penta had been banned by Battle.
How are they going to win this season?
So Penta no longer with their Waterboy. He's been banned from the game.
Thirsty players.
So long, Waterboy-Penta. They need that hydration bot that's been popping up in Twitch chat, I guess, to really give them a whirl. So we'll start off on CEO upstairs for Liquid. They get defense first. I mean, this is decided upon before the games actually start, so pretty good to look long-term given the history of defense so far in this matchup between the two.
Yeah, and they are bringing with Castle. I don't think they're going to be going for a similar strat that we saw from Rogue, for example, but Castle is very useful in a lot of sites, as we've seen on this particular map, especially this season. It's been Castle season all around, for sure, especially on this map, just because the amount of ways you can close off different rotations and stop long angles from that lobby have really paid off, especially in a case like this, for example, where they did not bring an Ashe, they did not bring a Zofia, they did not bring a Glaz, they don't have anything other than X-Kairos to be able to open up those castle barricades from long range. And that can really work in the defender's favor here, because now they can control the angles of approach, because it's really risky to run up and start punching it at that point. So it's kind of going to depend on GDN to be able to choose the right time to open them.
Now, one operator that we usually see a lot on Bank is, of course, Jackal, being run by Ion. This is to help with those aforementioned roamers, being able to pinch them. And you don't even need to necessarily use that ability to find the roamer, but there's also a bit of a disengagement to that ability. As in, if you're roaming, chances are you're going to not want to necessarily return to site because you're being tracked, and that is valuable for the attackers in the way that they use that Jackal tracker.
Yeah, this is really Jackal's original debut map, the one map that forced him to actually be picked once in a while. And that has definitely not shown any signs of slowing. And you bring a Lion into the mix, it's no surprise.
Yeah, and I mean, you toss a Dokkaebi in there, and now you got a stew cooking. It's going to be a slow stew, and nobody's moving at all. They're just standing watching the pot. So, ending that metaphor, we'll move on. We'll move to the halfway point, and you can see with CEO, you're going to have the site basically opened up. You've got the castle barricades to essentially grow where they're going to be defending. You've got the mirrors to give them the lines of sight into the parts that they have extended into. And then, of course, you've got the presence downstairs. Bank, with the size of it is, it's very rare that you will see roamers on all 3 floors like you would on potentially Oregon or like you would on Consulate. But you're still going to likely have a heavy presence with either 1 or 2 on the direct floor next to where the site is.
Interesting with that. I'm not sure if we were seeing an attempted bandit tricking there on the walls or not. But we have seen some interesting tricks to get around that from teams like SK. However, Zig not playing on the pulse surprisingly for once. He's actually just going to rotate around somewhat uncontested as they're not bothering to fight him down this floor, but he could get an engagement just a second here in his elevators, but he doesn't know, and the metal detectors might just give him away.
I think that there's going to be a call for the Lion sitting in the elevators. Panico's drone could potentially skirt by undetected. Zig having that long barrel will be able to deal some significant damage with that long barrel. An attachment and a barrel that you don't see very much of. Another Lion will go down, but that will be it as Panico off the board, and that will be the final EE1D that will ring over top of the map. That long gun of Ion will take out Nesk, and it's Bullet and Zig answering back, and Liquid off to a good start. They've only lost 1 thus far, and it's just the IQ and the Hibana that have to worry now. They've lost their smoke though, and Nesk, as Sexy Cake, Bullet, and Zig have sustained some significant damage. Another kill will come out for Liquid, and it's all up to the Hibana, who sprints in towards her death, and Bullet with 2 kills to give us our 12th defensive round victory of this matchup.
Gotta give some credit over to Zig. That roaming castle really paid off. Part of that was just due to poor roam control by Team 1, which of course, you know, we've seen for a while now in this particular matchup, but they just couldn't seem to contain him. He was able to get 2 kills from down there. 1 starting on the line, probably not as important, but the line was sitting there doing droning for his team, so that was a little bit of critical information off the board. And then following that up with a lot of good kills before they were able, just getting stuck on the outside of the bomb site in what is actually a very exposed area, leaves them potentially at that L. Not a lot you could do from there. Well, it'll be interesting to see if the Vigil here from Ion is nearly as effective as Zig was on that castle. But they are going to go to the more traditional one that you mentioned. So it is surprising after what we were talking about with Liquid for them to not start on this bomb site, but they won it, so there they go.
Not always common to see a castle being ran on the bottom floor. Now, likely because there's going to be considerable utility that is going to be available to the attackers, almost as if Castle is wasted. Now, Castle is an interesting operator that has been the subject of debate over whether he needs a buff to see better play. I mean, for us that see him in Pro League, we know his worth. I'm not going to weigh in on whether he does or does not. But what I will say is that Castle is very much a byproduct of the site and the environment in which they are defending. It also is a byproduct of the attacking lineup. If you have a Sledge, an Ashe, an IQ, or a Buck, and then maybe a Hibana, those castle barricades aren't really going to slow you down at all because you have plenty of gadgets that can destroy those barricades. You have, of course, the Sledgehammer of Sledge. You've got the frag grenades. You've got the breaching rounds. You've got the X-Karos. Right now on Team Liquid, you've got both a Thermite and a Hibana. You're not going to need 5 things broken. You can take out maybe 1 or 2 of those hatches with the X-Karos, then you can take out 1 of the walls with the exothermic charge. That leaves you 2 hard breaching abilities to take out those barricades.
Speaking of interesting, so I got to call out that mirror window that they had inside the open area. It's interesting. They opened up the wall so we could actually watch in the kitchen and the window at the same time because of the angle that he opened up for himself. That was an interesting setup. I don't know if I've seen before, just in the sense of his ability to defend both angles of approaches other than watching his own back was a nice idea. Obviously, they could drop hatches and things like that, but I like that use of destruction to really set yourself up 2 sight lines at once that you can watch without having to do a lot of adjustment physically.
Similar to the window on Border as well. When you see looking down that eastern hallway, you can shoot out the walls into Fountain, and then you can shoot out the walls around Fountain. So you can cover all the way into offices too, while also being able to look into break room on your right-hand side. So, of course, mirrors are strengthened and empowered by the environment around them as well, though mirrors typically are a bit more applicable than castle barricades. So, despite all this breaching ability that is being brought, of course, the lack of a Zofia or of an Ashe will hurt them. You can see that Liquid is taking their time. They haven't really done a successful job pinning down these roamers because there's still been some rotations mid-round from T1. E1D will freeze them in place, though, and this could potentially aid that entry.
see what I'm saying, though, about the Vigil being in Archives. Very, very predictable, but they've got a bit more roamers than they usually do. Unfortunately, that setup just did not work. He overexposed his feet. And the sexy kick take down Ion. Finally, that Vigil falls.
Panico is going to need to retake the site, but the diffuser goes off very successfully. The first kill will be iBlack's on the Bullet, but he lasts still upstairs. He's going to get finished off by Nesk in just a second here, unless Nesk can lose this battle, and the Valkyrie totally blind. Liquid toying with its food, and that is the very first attacking round victory for either of these teams in 13 rounds.
Yeah, they took him a minute to warm up. And that was the first time we saw Nesk actually being successful on the Blitz as well. Last time he was, as you mentioned before, the first to go. But trying it again on this map worked a little bit better. This is a map where we have seen, despite its openness, been very successful for Blitz in a lot of ways, although that was definitely a different approach for it. But the roamers just, while they stayed alive for a very long time, did almost nothing with that.
And I was going to say, I mentioned it earlier on, that Bank is a map where if the roam is not successful and they're too deep or they're in the wrong spots, the call can be made for the attackers to push that site. We saw that T1 started to rotate. They'd made the call to rotate out of open area. They were inside of Archives and Tellers. They could have potentially moved, but Liquid used that 1E, 1D perfectly. They killed everybody in place, and they used those 4 seconds, plus the little countdown timer, which was, in some ways, will stop people from being able to rotate fully in order to get into the basement. And at that point, they dared Team 1 to try to retake the site, and Liquid was there to catch them. And like I said, Bank is a map where if you take hold of the site, usually you can box out the defenders from coming back in. That was what Liquid showed right then and there, and that T1's roamers were a little too deep and divorced of the actual site, and the site couldn't deal with it.
Interestingly, speaking of bomb sites, Liquid are really changing things up. Not only are they not going with the typical 2, they're going with the other 2. They're going to go with open area for their second defense. Now, they were successful in both defense and attack, so they obviously had switched bomb sites, but to switch to another bomb site like this, they're really trying to keep Team 1 off. Now, this was their map pick, which means they were obviously feeling very confident in both these off-kilter site defenses they're going with, and this is what I'm liking about Bank. Now, Bank is not a map I normally like this season especially, and with the fact that 4 bomb sites are actually being played fairly well, it's been really shining, I think, and I gotta imagine this is gonna throw T1 off and potentially make it 3-0 situation here for Liquid if they play this smart. They are gonna be going with a castle again, so it could be somewhat similar defense to what we saw from Rogue, at least in partial, not a whole.
Castle is so important on this site because what Castle does by expanding your site is allow you to fight out of the office and potentially Archives Tellers as well, or at very minimum Archives, because of the way that you can use those Castle barricades to grow the site that you have. You complemented the way that Team 1 was using their mirrors inside of open area, and we see a similar setup being applied from Liquid, which is you shoot out all the walls around it and essentially gives you even wider field of view. That peripheral vision that you have around the mirror expands by a lot.
And that's the joy of the destructibility of Siege, is you can customize maps to your liking. Unfortunately, Nesk gets customized right off, and that is a smoke off the board early. Unfortunate for this defense. You don't need him in that defense as you've got the Echo still, as long as he can stay alive. But Bullet is peeking a bit. Not sure if Bullet is the best person to be overexposing the Echo, as he is a little bit slow, but he does have the ACOG.
He does, and Zig's still just lurking inside of Archives. You've got Hugzord from above, who will need to rely on his gadget to pressure this site. The biggest problem with open area, and one of the reasons why it is so undefendable, is that when you lose it hard.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You can attack it with great ease. It is literally called open area. It is a giant cavernous room in which you can watch multiple angles and use the cubicles to your advantage, and essentially hurts you when you're trying to, or if you're trying to retake. BSK looking like he was going to try to take out those XKROs, but he's under pressure and he'll have to get out of there. Sustains a tiny bit of damage as the mirror will get blown to pieces. He's now going to rotate to the second mirror that's looking inside of the office, looking up towards the main hatch, looking into the other office of CEO above.
That's a big problem, is you have to deal with 3 hatches here. Yeah, maybe ventilation has 2 on border, but they're a bit more defensible. Once 3 hatches are open here, you don't have a lot you can work with in terms of being able to stop them from being able to use those against you. Yeah, maybe they won't drop them, but they're certainly going to use those angles and the destructibility of the floor to their advantage. Candelas are going to come out, and they start getting blinded. Now that's Echo unable to do anything. Zig takes down Panico, and this is the start of the trades back and forth.
Ion is in. You could see that for a moment there's a bit of hesitation as PSK had looked up into the electrical closet from above. Diffuser goes off successfully, and it will need to be a retake. GDN has been downed, but now Zig will go himself. Bullet gets one, and he'll need to clutch. He's got 2 more left. It's just Hugzord and Ion that are still upright, and right now Team 1 is looking to win their first attack. But no, Bullet drops through the hatch. No heads-up play from the Echo. He's a 3 armor, and that will be quite a jaunt back to the site. And of course, his rotate will be held by Ion. Could potentially expose his back, and he will. The Jackal finishes things off, and T1 on the board as they break their defensive curse and get their first attacking round victory.
Well, it's good to see. We're not going to see defense, defense, defense here, but that also means that the experimental defenses might come to an end here in terms of open area. We were praising it before. Kix was head over heels, I would say, on this particular defense here previously, but we're not really seeing it work most of the time, as opposed to CEO, which we're actually seeing work fairly often. So overall, probably going to see that curb off after a time. I don't know if Liquid will try that again, maybe one more time, but I can't see them trying it 3 times if it doesn't continue to work. But Liquid at least have been experimenting. They obviously have the fallback of the downstairs, which I imagine they're going to go to here probably next, although they can go for that CEO defense yet again if they want to, now that they've been off of it once. But we're going to see Team 1 creating out a mute this time, something that's fairly effective on this particular bomb site, just to try and stop a lot of that roam clear that they're going to need to do. We'll see if they can maybe get a defensive round here, as they have not won one yet.
And Mute as an operator has been creeping up our standings and power rankings of defensive operators, if you want to ape a term that is used in a variety of other sports. And of course, Mute provides a number of things. I would say that right now he's going to rise and fall based upon the propensity that teams bring Lion, which right now is, sitting around 100%. So
yeah, fairly often.
We see him once or twice. So with that, a Mute is pretty understandable. But I mean, on top of that, he also brings other things to the table. He's not just solely a Lion counter. He also can destroy the ability for drones to be able to gain resources and information on your team. He can negate the ability of certain gadgets if placed on walls, similar to the way that Bandit Charge works. So Mute has a variety of uses that can be applied to a variety of sites as well.
And the thing about choosing him on this particular bomb site is he can cover more walls than Bandit can, and you need it actually for this bomb site. If you want to cover all the walls that can be thermited from, say, the open area or from the hallway, you actually need a Mute to be able to do it, because there's more walls than you can have Bandit batteries, whereas I believe there's 5 you would need to do, not to mention if you want to cover the ones facing outside into the tellers area. So I think, yeah, maybe you can go with Bandit and Mute, but Mute, almost a must pick on the site.
The only real downside is you can't Mute juggle the same way you can Bandit Charge. Once you lose a Mute Jammer, it is gone. So another thing to take note of here, CEO, CCTV, open area, and now Archives Tellers. 4 rounds and all 4 sites that we have seen.
They are trying to add some variety after the staleness of what we saw in Order.
The spice of life.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So thank you very much to both of these teams.
When we saw 2 bomb sites over and over last map.
And I'm pretty certain that a castle has been at 100% pick rate as well for all 4 of these sites. And seeing a castle applied to every single site is not abnormal, but is certainly by no means commonplace, and I think it's something worth remarking on. Now, stacking up outside of Tellers, it is Liquid literally just waiting. You can see PSK droning in Nesk, doing his best job as the ultimate support, and Bullet seeing the entire bottom of that Tellers wall has been shot out. And that will mean that if there's somebody playing on stairs, which you can see in an open area, it's going to allow a possible rotate. Now Liquid's just going to back up, and here's the Turtle Strat coming out. Panico takes out Sexy Cake, and that is the Ying. You can see the Candelas, but Nesk, absorbing some damage into his shield, will be successful. That diffuser goes down, even though T1 has taken out 2. They're going to have to battle back. They'll be stopped by the Lion, and will be giving their position away. Nesk takes out Hugzord, and he just needs to sit and babysit the diffuser, but he could potentially get pushed from 2 angles. He sees the Mira, can't get it. He's going to call for help, and Liquid's going to need to take care of the Mira, who's going to get the diffuser, and T1 even things out. They win again on defense, and we are back to 2 apiece. These teams, boy, that community vote sure made you think that this would have been over by now.
Yeah, well, it makes me question a lot of assumptions, especially since we said this was Liquid's map. Going back to 2-2, a bit of a surprise, and it's with breaking the attack curse as well. So we've had 2 attacks, 2 defenses. So, and as you said, all 4 bomb sites. So they just took everything from last map, really shook it up, and ended up with the same result at the end of the day, that they are tied. We almost saw Montaigne, no, we do see a Montaigne from iBlacks there, deciding that, Blitz is great and all, but I want to cover these nice shoes I just bought. He's going to be able to walk in a little more effectively. The question is, do they know which bomb site it is? Now, we have seen, for example, going back to Penta, an effective attack on this particular bomb site with a Montaigne. But that's the thing is, can they predict where Liquid are going to go? Now, this is them returning, again, to their first bomb site, which does make the most sense logically. However, with all 4 bomb sites being played, they could have potentially played anywhere, and it was a bit risky for iBlacks to make that choice. They had to have read into this and have a strat for this. However, you have a lot of potential angles to deal with this Montaigne. This is not an easy just waltz in. We saw what happened to the Blitz last time in what should have been an easy scenario for him just due to Crossfire and his inability to really cover the bomb without teammates. Montaigne is even less effective in covering without teammates.
This is at a point right now where I don't want to say it's hell, but this makes it very difficult for teams when every single site is viable and you're trying to determine where are they going to go. I mean, let's look at Consulate, for example. There's one site on Consulate where Thermite is basically an absolute must-have. When you are facing a prospect, when that garage is open, most teams will just run a Thermite out of necessity that, hey, we don't want to be stuck in a position where we don't have a Thermite to attack the defense, or to attack the defense downstairs. Right now, I mean, to me, there aren't any operators that are must-haves on this particular map other than a Thermite, and that's once again because there's 2 sites where you need a Thermite to be able to break a wall open.
And you can use him on all 4. That's the nice thing. He has utility. It's not like a situation where it's like, well, I don't know what we're even going to do with this guy here. He actually has utility. There are walls that are blowable that are useful on every single site here. And so that I would say he is a must pick in the sense that you have the flexibility to attack the way you want. But then we've also seen occasionally some more Habanas brought out on this particular map, although not in this particular round. However, they are bringing out a Glaz, which I think might be the first Glaz we've seen, surprisingly, for this map, as we have seen a lot of Glaz played this season on Bang.
And Glaz fits some of these sites as well because of the longer range engagement. So you can look from quite a ways away, you can use those smoke grenades to your advantage, essentially try to dare out the defenders and pick them off, because, I mean, he does have quite a significant amount of damage drop-off, but a headshot from long range is still a headshot.
Interestingly enough, though, to almost counter something that he would have been great countering is no castle for the first time here from Team Liquid. They've definitely changed it up a little bit. They are going to be bringing Zig on that Echo. Should be interesting as he's playing very far off site. Reminds me of the roaming smokes here. It's like, well, your job is not really this, but if you want to make it your job, as long as you can get some kills, which we saw the roaming castle of him do prior. So he's doing a similar strategy just with a different operator. A bit of a slower one, though.
Now, right now, if you look at the way that this works, there's 6 smoke grenades available for the attackers and 3 smoke canisters available for the defenders, which means that this is a very wise idea for them to waste all of, or make Nesk waste these 3 smoke canisters, because now you've got 45 seconds with 0 coverage of those toxic babes. And because of this, you can now use either your Yings, your Montaignes, or your Glaz's smokes very liberally. You don't need to conserve them as much because you've drawn out all of that usage of smoke.
A lot's going to fall on Zig then to try and stop that with his Yokai drone, as you do hear Candela starting to come out, but they're not pushing effectively yet, and 25 seconds left to do so.
Zig will light up too, but of course that MP5 does so little damage suppressed and at range. Zig is just holding off on the tides at the moment. You can see most of T1 is very soft. Hugzor gets the first kill on a Liquid refrag from Nesk. Liquid's going to have to deal with the Montaigne here. C4 goes off, but no, they can't get it. But Nesk, a huge round. Can he get the diffuser? It's not being planted. Liquid just needs to hang on, and T1 is not going to pick it up. And how many rounds in a row are we going to see these misfires from the attack as Liquid breaks the stalemate? They'll go back into the lead because T1 could not get that diffuser down in time.
They had such a great attack as well. As you said, they burnt up all the smokes of Nesk. Zig was roaming mostly off-site, inability to use his Yokai drone. They had the Candelas, they had the smokes, they had Glass to be able to fight through them. They had everything in their favor. They even had the Montaigne to make sure that the plant wasn't just going to get easily countered, because he can even potentially block a C4 that might still be able to stop it. However, just not planting. And this is from a team that was the one that who'd been able to get the Ninja plants down last map. Where was that on that attack? It just did not happen, and basically gave Liquid a free round, again, as you said, due to failed attack strategies. At least we've seen 2 attack wins on this map. I hope that's not the last we see of them, though. One can hope. We are going to see Nesk again on Blitz. Now, we said he didn't do so great last map. Did do pretty well on his last time this map, so we could hopefully see a repeat of that from him.
And I mean, the Blitz is going to work well doing that, you know, the Ninja Turtle strat. on the basement because we are going back down to the CCTV
nice.
downstairs, and iBlack's just giving you viewers at home some idea of where to use your Valkyrie cams. Now, because of just the size of Bank, Valkyrie cams are actually pretty easy to stash, and that's why sometimes you will see teams running an IQ, but I think honestly a big issue with IQ is just that there's no place for her right now. You need a hard breacher, you likely need some kind of soft destruction. I mean, some teams foregoing the soft destruction in this regard. They have Hibana likely to take some of that soft and hard destruction if need be. You've got a Ying just for utility, etc. Don't need to really delve into exactly why, but I mean, IQ can see some value here, even though, I mean, typically she seems to thrive on the maps where you need to worry about those cameras when entering. An example would be Consulate.
In this case, not so much, although they do cover some pretty wide open areas, which can work to your advantage, but those aren't areas where you can get the jump necessarily on attackers. However, attackers have mostly been getting jumped on, I would say, a lot so far, so maybe those will pay off for iBlacks, who's been pretty effective overall, I would say. And mostly at this point, it's going to help support Ion and iBlacks' roam play as well, because those two as roamers have been able to stay alive successfully, and maybe those cameras are part of that in the sense that they can get some idea where the attack push is coming from. They can push off against it. However, they haven't been getting any kills off that. That's what needs to change this round. Otherwise, this might just fall down like it did last time.
Panico is roaming. He'll now escape upstairs, so you're going to have bodies on every single floor. Ion is hold himself up in the caged animal strategy inside of open area. He's going to have a large amount of opportunity to roam, as that main staircase will be central. But what did Liquid do last time they attacked the site? They ignored the roamers. They just took the site and forced them to retake and beat them on the retake. It looks like Liquid is in a position, even though they are of course trying to battle at the roamers, they've pushed the roamers, and for the second round in a row, they're going to use that EE1D to great effect. They're going to pin down the smoke here, and no chance Hugzord, who has had a bad day of staying alive, and Liquid is just going to slap T1 right off of the site. But Ion going to go for the retake. He's trying to compete, and he's got his work cut out for him. Manages to escape the Candela. No, PSK is there to get him. Panico takes out Bullet, but now Panico goes for one. PSK down, and it is just up to iBlacks. T1 getting crushed and trampled underfoot as once again can Nesk finish off iBlacks. No, the Valkyrie gets redemption, but still two more as PSK will need to go for the plan, and iBlacks is far off site. PSK will now get the plant down, and it's iBlacks looking to go into that open area office. He sees the corpse and just sees the back of the Thermite, but misses. PSK gets the plant down, and iBlacks will need to get two. But the ACOG of PSK through the hatch finish off iBlacks. The Thermite getting the final kill, and Liquid will go on to match point on their map. A
fantastic attempt by iBlacks. Could you imagine had he got the kill on Thermite's butt there before the defuse went down? That could have actually worked in his favor, and he did manage to at least counter the blitz, which was, I would say, a little bit of a surprise. However, that was a push we rarely see, the old vault drop. Surprisingly working, and I think the blitz being actually a good part of that in the terms of when you make that push, as you saw what that blitz was doing, you need to be able to rush towards red through that gold vault area very quickly to be able to stop them. Almost couldn't get it. Surprisingly, just the Mirror didn't turn around and fight that very well. He seemed to just run from it instead, which, I mean, yeah, obviously you need to run from that pain train coming right at you, but at the same time, he just exposed his back to someone he knows is very quick on the draw and just completely exploited that. So that was well played by Liquid and unfortunate for Team 1, because now it's match point. No more tit for tat here, as finally the streak is broken, as Liquid have gotten 2 in a row, and Team 1 now looking to potentially be going with the L for the day if they cannot take this round.
So how about this for symmetry for you?
Yeah.
Both times that Liquid have gone to C, both times that Liquid have won their attacking rounds have been on CCTV, both of which have been defenses from T1. So round 1 was CEO, round 2 was CCTV. First was a defensive Liquid, second was a defensive T1. Liquid won both of those. The last 2 rounds were CEO and CCTV. Same thing, same result. The middle rounds were open and archives. When Liquid defended open area, Team 1 won, and then immediately went to archives where Team 1 won on defense. We are now back on open, back on Liquid's map. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that if history repeats itself, T1 will win this will win this attack, then go to defense, and then win that one as well, and it will likely be on archives, and then we'll have a perfect 8 rounds, 2 defenses of every single site. But for the time being, we have to get through open area first.
Yeah. If we see that, then I'm going to start to think we're being punked and that these guys are orchestrating.
I mean, at that point, you have to say it's rigged.
Yeah, it's got to be.
I mean, that is...
I will start the investigation.
We don't believe in neutrality here. You just have to be hyperbolic immediately and say at that point...
Oh, yeah.
It's too coincidental.
How else can you be on the internet? But there is someone hiding, it looked like, in stock. Should be, as you mentioned, the first Ash, actually. Something that we didn't see at all previously. We'll see if that's long-lived or not, as he's getting dangerously close to fighting someone.
It was Sexy Cake who was prone inside of stocks or trading area. No, it's Nesk, actually, who's in there now, and he's not even got the shotgun. Nesk with the FMG. What is going on? Why are we seeing this? But iBlax just springs right in. There's no chance against an Ash. The 5-speed will jump right inside the window, and I mean, why do you have the smoke up there? At that point, that's such a valuable operator to waste that early on, and I say waste because you now don't have a smoke for the final 90 seconds.
But he had his FMG.
So Ash proving to be a good pick, though.
Yeah.
As iBlax now has 2, Sexy Cake gets vanished, and vanquished as inside of CEO office. But remember, the 3v5 is probably the least secure hold that you have.
You mentioned history, and it's looking like we're seeing a good repeat here.
There's a lot of spooky, superstitious stuff. You know, I would say I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
Yeah, maybe just
sort of substitious. And Zig inside of the front of Bank, just outside of Archives. This is right now T1 just running rough sod over Liquid.
Well, how do you feel about 5v2s?
I mean, I don't. Because if I'm Liquid, I'm feeling pretty bad at the moment. If I'm Team 1, I'm feeling pretty good. PSK sees the head very briefly of iBlax from above, and now Bullet is going to try to creep his way back to site. But Liquid certainly has their work cut out for them. As an E1D will freeze them in place, they'll put a lot of pressure on the Mira, and that P-shooter of Bullet unable to secure a kill. PSK will get the first one for Liquid. That's Hugzord down, and the Ying is the first casualty. Ion has taken some damage as well, and you can see PSK will have to lick his wounds, but Bullet gets one inside a stock, and will now look to drop. Time is working in their favor, but they're frozen in place. No, PSK gives himself away, and iBlax punishes that. It's going to be Bullet just to stop the plant from going down. GDN holds on to it. They lost sight of the Mira, and he knows the diffuser is going down. Bullet will need to drop in through trading. Surely somebody will be watching that. They do not have the Mira, which is situated inside of staff area. He drops amidst the barbed wire. The plant down over by the printer machine. He'll toss out a C4, but there's nobody on the other side of it. GDN is holding that angle. Panico still up, and iBlax just waiting for Bullet to pop up. He sees one. He lights him up, but you see why some people think the MPX is one of the lowest ranked guns in the game. 3rd lowest DPS, can't really do much. Panico is there, and Team 1 will stay alive.
Well, great effort, though. He really put in a good try. Unfortunately, that's the second time we've seen a similar clutch attempt from Valkyrie, trying to sneak around. But as you said, the MPX, unfortunately, given some good vegetables with that P-shooter, but not really getting a lot of kills. You really need to land the headshots with that. And unfortunately, we're mostly seeing them see bodies where they're not able to land those headshots and those unfortunate angles working against them. But history repeating, we could see overtime at this point. Team Liquid, though, still resting on match point because of the way the history went down with the 2 points and then 2 points and then 2 points and then 2 points. But this is Team 1's moment of choice, or a moment of chance still, because it's not a situation where they're both won 1 map each. This is a situation where Liquid won the last map. Therefore, if history repeats itself, then Liquid goes home with the W either way.
So Archives, Team 1 needs to win this one. It is eerily similar. I mean, I could take a picture of this. I could tweet this right now.
Could you take a picture of it, or would it just vanish?
Ooh, is my notepad vigil? Oh.
Nope.
So we'll see. Can Team 1 stick this one out and push us to overtime for the second map? If so, then I think there's a good chance of saying that this matchup was a lot closer than people expected, and both teams have a credible argument when we go to Skyscraper on saying that they both deserve their spot in at LAN.
Yeah.
For Team 1, though, I don't believe Team 1 has ever represented Latin America in Pro League on LAN. Now, of course, Brazil is a region where they have their own LANs. That's what BR6 is. So they have been to LAN, quote-unquote, before, which is BR6, which is all played in an offline build. But they have never, to the best of my knowledge, they have never gone and represented Latin America, at least not over the last couple seasons as a team. So this would be a first for them. And for Liquid, really, more than anything, if Liquid failed to make it to LAN, it would be 2 disappointing series in a row, because I think a lot of people expected them to make it out of the groups.
Yeah.
And were upset, I think, by some by the performance of Mindfreak.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see Liquid and Black Dragons both not there. That would be a difficult spot for Brazil come Atlantic City. However, North America, you know, like, they get 2 lands in a row. Maybe this is their chance to finally win one again after Penta have been pretty much crushing them all. We'll see.
And Penta will be shown tomorrow in their matchup against Vitality. Then we'll also have a 1-up playing against Millennium. So of the final 4 European teams, 2 are French. They will have an opportunity to send one of those French teams to Atlantic City. Now, Hugzord with the mute. This is a similar strategy that we saw last time around. I like how same all of these defenses seem to be. It's just the same thing over and over again. I mean, why would you change it? If you were Team 1, you can make little tweaks here and there just to make sure that the attackers are droning and communicating effectively. But the Archives push last time worked. The castle was a huge reason why. They expanded the site, they were able to collapse, and Nesk did not pull off the push into Archives that was needed, or through Tellers rather, that was needed.
Absolutely. Well, it seems like you said, history repeating itself, but a minute 12 left and no one's died. This still could go anyone's game here. They do have all the utility they need from both sides to be able to make this work. But kills need to start going down soon, as you have people like Panico trapped all the way downstairs that can't do a whole lot from there if he's not able to get any angles, but it could be a nice surprise if they try and push up to that hatch. And
it looked like iBlacks just abandoned all of the setup that they had inside of open area, which is very peculiar. That one Valkyrie camp that is tossed out by iBlacks in the lobby is going to be crucial. First kill goes to Ion to send us towards overtime. Should the rest of his team be able to get on the board too, as there's no sexy cakes. That's the Ying falling bullet takes out Ion, so the Legion will have no chance getting back to site. The Muta Hugzord will get 2 big kills for Team 1, and now Liquid will have to respond. A 4v2. Diffuser is down, the Mute will give his position away. Zig takes out GDN, and Liquid tantalizingly close to being sent into overtime. For Team 1, they have to be feeling good. It's just a Lion and a Hibana left. Another EE1D will go off, and Panico takes down Zig, and we are almost assuredly going there as 3 kills from Hugzord. History will indeed repeat itself, and extra innings will be required for the 2nd map in a row.
I would say, judging by the last map and this map, these 2 are wonderful dance partners.
It takes 2 to tango, I believe, is the idiom that is used, and there's certainly a tango that is going on, some dancing afoot. We mentioned the low frequency in which we've seen an Ashe. We had only seen her come out once, and that was on the open area push that was used by Team 1. It does appear that Nesk will opt to go towards Ashe, and an operator like this is a formidable killing machine, especially in anybody's hands, and obviously not ignoring the way that that Nesk has gone with his playing. Panico, unfortunately, will drop, and there will need to be a rehost. So we will we'll head to bank, and I'm assuming there will be maybe some kind of coin flip or something to determine that. But it's unfortunate because, I mean, we've had a really nice pattern going on.
That's why they had to do that, to break the curse. But we did see that time, at least Team 1 this time got defense first on the overtime. So different, I guess, than last map, although that not as important on this particular map, although we'll see that it can affect history repeating itself because we've had sets of 2, and there's only 3 overtime rounds. Therefore, that will affect things in terms of who gets to win this map. So maybe that works out in their favor this time, because last time it worked out in Liquid's favor, the way things went down. So.
Right. And I mean, that's unfortunate that I mean, like a coin toss would come in and be that factor. Like I said, I don't really think it was the culprit of that because of the fact that these teams were unable to shake themselves.
Well, shaking is, I mean, I can only imagine at this point this kind of short break that they're going to get in terms of the rehost like this will give them a chance to collect themselves. And this is when they think, oh, maybe we should stop repeating history, right? Because last time we didn't have a little rehost break on the overtime. They just had to slug it out and do whatever they could to try and get past what they were doing before and couldn't seem to. Now they have the chance to.
So just as we get the teams back into the lobby, we'll get underway with potentially the extra innings required on bank. Very big surprise going into this that both of these teams, I mean, both these teams have needed all of this ground to cover. I mean, both teams have showed up, and that's what I said, as if both Liquid and Team 1 show up, I think we're going to need all 3 maps. Right now, Liquid is eked ahead just because of their win on Border, but now Team 1 has the opportunity to do the same on Liquid's map.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. It is amazing that it has gone this far, though. I got to give a lot of credit to Team One for getting to this point, because I don't think Liquid are playing bad. I don't think this is like how they've been playing in BR6. I don't think it's just, oh, they're giving it up to Team One. It's absolutely Team One stepping up here.
Absolutely.
And then Liquid maybe not showing up as much as we would like, as much as they did against FaZe at least. And either way, if Liquid win this, it has been a great matchup between these two. If it gets to 3 maps, even better for these guys, but it is a very intense neck and neck. And that's exactly what you want to see in a matchup like this.
And I mean, not to discredit this Liquid team that showed up, but now we can look back on that FaZe Liquid matchup and say, how much of that was actually Liquid being prepared, but how much of that was maybe FaZe not having the match that they needed? Because, I mean, Liquid has made a series of mistakes against Team One that it didn't seem that they were making against FaZe. And I mean, FaZe looked like they made so many mistakes in that matchup, and now it's like, it's hard to tell when we have a short season like this as well, which teams are truly the ones on top. Because, like I said at the beginning, Liquid 2-0'd FaZe, FaZe 2-0'd Black Dragons, therefore, you know, Liquid then FaZe. But now, Team One, who is a team that has made it to playoffs and played very well, but didn't appear necessarily to be able to compete with, say, a FaZe or a Black Dragons previously, they're now batting as effectively as we expected them to. And this has been a very exciting match between the two teams and very even as well.
Yeah, and like I said, the big question is, will this rehost break change things? So I guess we'll find out.
We'll toss to a very quick break as the teams get reassembled in the lobby, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Stretch your legs, grab some water, do as you must. We'll see you in a few. Welcome back to our playoffs here in Latin America. If you were just tuning in or need a bit of a refresher, we saw Team Liquid over my my shoulder right here, take map number 1 against Team 1, and it was Team 1's map, and now Team 1 has battled back to throw us into overtime, which is going to get underway in just a moment on Bank between these two teams. On the line is a spot at Atlantic City at our LAN finals coming up in a couple weeks.
So close, and chances are probably none of these teams going to be flying out for DreamHack, as I believe they would have to do that on their own dime. So this is probably their best shot at going to a LAN here. However, either way, I would like to see Team 1 next season really pick it up and just be a big-time contender, maybe even get a big org. I'm not sure how big Team 1 is, but...
Team 1's a sizable Brazilian org.
Yeah, that's good.
So I believe they've got a team competing in a couple other games. I remember looking into them when they first announced, because I know it was a boon for the team that was known as Rogerino at one point. That was picked up by Team 1. So I know
they're earning it today.
Absolutely they have, and they have put up a really big fight. Now, if you're just getting familiarized with these two teams, the community vote said something along the lines of 87 to 13% for Team Liquid.
You guys weren't right. I'm sorry.
So far, that has not been correct. I mean, technically, even if Team Liquid wins, 87% will vindicate it. But I mean, it's certainly a lot closer. It's not as much of a disparity between the two teams as I think some had previously assumed. Coming out will be a Dokkaebi. Mentioned that Sexy Cake had played the Dokkaebi a couple times and had not seen one so far this matchup, but here we are.
Yeah, he had been successful in the past, so they, as I said about the break, you know, they must have been using that to kind of figure out how they want to do things. Although I do believe, I think I saw it actually before the break, before the rehost, so it's something they were planning to do either way. However, we'll see if it's a big factor or not, as it is a good help for the roam hunting, but without a Jackal, it is not as effective. However, still, you got the Lion, that's still going to combine with that. Plus, the guns actually could be pretty good guns. You have the long range for the DMR to be able to use across this lobby here, so taking advantage of the long range play. And then that SMG-12 can be quite the beast once you get in close range.
The other thing, too, to keep in mind is that Liquid really hasn't been using a Jackal at all. Not one bit. It's really just been one who's been relying on Ion to hunt down those roamers and find out where they are, possibly keep them in place. Now, like I said earlier on, the thing with Jackal is that he can also make it so that you have to be a bit more tepid when you're coming back to site. And that's something that Lion excels at much stronger, because he literally freezes you in place, whereas a Jackal will just simply ping you, and you can even use that ping to outsmart the Jackal as well.
We saw this previously where they had the Hellbot open up the wall in terms of trying to get an angle from Lone Office in. This time he's being a little more hesitant in it, hoping to try and catch someone off guard underneath the castle barricade first. But they're being very cautious about what they do in terms of their approach after that short break. They're just taking things a little slower. They are going to finally open it, but they're opening it a little high, interestingly, so that he is not going to immediately expose himself to it.
It also doesn't look like that Xkaros got exactly where he wanted it to, which will be a sightline that will be deprived, and possibly valuable resources that could go elsewhere will no longer be used. Panico, what? How does the castle get a knife onto Zig the Lion? No heads-up play whatsoever, and Team 1 gets the first kill of our overtime. Meanwhile, in the background, 2 minutes have been burned off of the clock by Team 1, and Liquid will need to reassess and make a better push onto site.
Well, that is the Zig getting killed by a roaming castle, potentially, something he had been playing previously, but Nescalee's trading it back onto Legion means a lot of goo mines will not be placed, so that's a good early kill to get, much like killing an early smoke in some ways, although you do hear a goo mine go off immediately after that, so his legacy lives on. He had been previously playing a pretty effective Vigil on some of the other sites, and trading that up for a Legion is an interesting choice.
PSK will light up the wall, and GDN takes the head off a Sexy Cake as a logic bomb will make it so that people have to stop for just a second there. Nesk contesting inside of open area. Running out of time though, just 10 seconds, and now PSK will get a plant off just by the filing cabinet, but a C4 and T1, a huge volley will leave just Nesk, and no chance. Team 1 takes the lead, and this is their first lead of this map.
Yeah, they've always been playing catch up with those 2 rounds in a row, so good to start. Like I said before, there isn't a chance to do 2 and 2 in overtime because there's only 3 rounds maximum. So getting the early lead there, you know, maybe the coin flip working out in their favor this time. Either way, though, they played that, I think, very effectively. That early knife was definitely a big start because Zig had been someone who's giving a lot of information to his team. Take someone out like that very early, catching him off guard. Obviously, that's going to tilt him, but it's also going to set up a situation where now they have a lot less info. So, I mean, they obviously made some change-ups as well. For example, Nesk being on Ashe is something you used to see a lot, but I only had seen that, I think, for the first time that time, because I believe it was a different player on Ashe previously when we saw it on Border once.
iBlacks had played Ashe earlier on. You remember he got that 3-piece or the 2-piece in order to put in some significant work for his team. Now, every single time that Liquid has gone to CEO and defended it, they have been successful. Now, mind you, it's a small sample size. It's only 2 rounds, but that's about as large of a sample size we have on any map or on any site. It's only Archives that has been played more than twice. And Archives has been defended all 3 times by T1, and Liquid has lost all 3 times. So what that means is that if Liquid is successful here, T1 will need to go to another site to defend. The only other site outside of Archives that they have defended has been CCTV, and they have lost both times. So do they roll the die? Do they go to open area? Do they go up to CEO to try if Liquid is able to prevail here? Because history suggests that Liquid should win this round. But, I mean, history is meant to be broken. Streaks are meant to be broken. And for Team 1, they're going to bring a set of operators that, like a Swiss Army knife, will be able to carve their way through. iBlacks has worked on the Ashe, played very well last time around, and they obviously have the Twitch of Ion 2 to handle the Yokai, potential Valk cams, bandit charges, and as well, most importantly, those 2 mirrors that will be sent down by PSK.
Yeah, what'll be interesting is, are we going to have, for example, a roaming Nesk smoke again, or is it going to be playing offside on that Echo and then exposing the chance to take out some of the main site defenders early, like they have been doing? I mean, that hasn't always crippled them. That hasn't necessarily been the worst thing to happen, but it is an oddity that we see particular to this region. That is something that hasn't completely backfired just because of the way they defend the site itself is so different. And CEO has definitely been working out for them. I feel like they got a lot closer to taking it last time with the Montaigne strat. They're not going to go with that again, but I feel like they felt out the defense a bit better. I do think there's the potential we could see Team 1 take this round. And
really the only reason why they didn't win it that time was because they couldn't get the diffuser. They'd wasted a number of time. They had a numbers advantage up until the very final moment when they tried to retrieve that diffuser, and Liquid was able to take out 2 very important members, leaving only, I believe there was 1 up, and that was the Lion of Team 1, while the other had been down but not finished off. So half the round to go, and Team 1 still struggling to get inside of the building. They have not been able to take up as much real estate as they need to. iBlacks on this window is a peculiar place for an Ashe to be, because usually you don't want your Ashe positioned on a rappel. You want that Ashe to be able to play those angles and play those corners and get in and out of rooms quickly and efficiently in getting those kills. Here's a Thermite, and this is what I was saying. 2 sites where you need a Thermite. This one is almost required. And iBlacks just narrowly catches his prey. He'll miss as the rotate happened while he was still on rappel, trying to play that angle on the window.
Another 5-on-5 with less than a minute left here. This has kind of been a bit of a theme. Again, seeming like we're watching Vitality play again. However, it is still plenty of time for this to go down because they've got the site open. There's a lot of other site open there as well with the stock, for example, being shotgunned. Zig has his Yokai way off site, maybe making a quick withdrawal because he's going to have to get it all the way upstairs, potentially driving up the spiral stairs.
Frustration from Nesk as he will miss his Toxic Babe. It'll hit the casing around the doorway. The C4 from PSK will not find its target. The Yokai drone is just scooting away at the hallway, and Candelas will ring off. First kill goes to PSK, and that's Hugzord down. Once again, the Ying will say goodbye. We'll bid adieu to that utility-based operator. Zig inside of the lobby is trying to contend against. GDN has been downed, and now there's only Panico, Ion, and iBlacks. Though Ion gets a kill onto PSK and tries to rush into site, but Nesk is there to greet him with the SMG-11. Only 2 left, no diffuser whatsoever. A great pushback from Liquid, and that is it. Liquid will win their 3rd time in a row, and now you are Team 1. You have to defend a site that you have never won before, and that is essentially what we were looking at for this 11th round.
It's hard to say, you know, because CCTV is all reliable at this point, but that's the one they've been losing to 2 different attacks. So the question is, at this point, do you say, we're going to try all reliable and we're going to make some adjustments. But how do you adjust when you've been attacked 2 different ways? You can't just go with a simple, we know how they're going to play it and we're going to look for weaknesses in what they did and adjust those, because you can't. The only weakness that you can really say is consistent is finding a way to stop that blitz early. Now they could go with like a Legion or something, which they're not going to. Instead, they're going to go with the same roamers here. You've got Ion and iBlacks again. So they're going to try the same thing again. This time, it really needs to be Ion and iBlacks being effective, or you're going to see Team 1 going home with the lose.
Yeah, both times that Liquid has been able to attack this site, they have looked so clean when they've made their push happen. and that's been in large part because of the fact that they've attacked the site and not really had to worry about the roamers. And they've used those EE1Ds so effectively on their pushes to freeze everybody in place. They've dropped those hatches. Like you said, both times around, you saw a push once into the main area of CCTV, and then the other came into lockers as they dropped through the vault and just simply out-fragged Team One.
Yeah.
So which way is Liquid going to go this time? Because right now, if I'm Team One, I have no confidence in how I'm going to stack up because Liquid can take advantage of either.
Now in this case, it clearly looks like they're going to go for a servers push, which is not going to be a lockers drop at all. However, it is they've only shotgunned it partially, and I mean, it could be hard for Thermite to plant on there. They do have a Hibana as well to be able to open that up, but no shotgun power necessarily unless the Ying's running a shotgun to be able to like open up that wall. It looks like he's not. So this is going to be tricky, I think, for Liquid to open this. However, they find a spot. PSK going to make it easy instead.
Unfortunately for Team One, they were not able to get full coverage of those shotgun blasts, and they will give up that wall. I mean, for Team One, it wasn't necessarily crucial that that wall stay intact, though, because all you're trying to do with that wall is buy time and maybe get a pickoff and waste some of those gadgets. But look at that, GDN will wiggle and still lose the Mira as he can't get the last one because of that small magazine on the Vector that was mentioned before.
Well, unfortunately, still has a C4 to play with. They still have smokes. They still have eye blacks all the way pretty much at the ATMs at this point.
And will be frozen and stopped, and now Zig will take out Hugzord, and as a couple members of T1 will move, their positions will be given away. 3 members of T1 off-site. iBlacks, Panico, and Ion all need to retake, and Liquid looking masterful in how they're holding off. Now Panico trying to get rid of a Claymore on top of White Stairs. He sees one from above. They'll trade off as Zig gets 2, and Bullet with the last one. It's all up to GDN for Liquid to go to Atlantic City. They have 1 more kill away, and he'll just wander right in. Liquid will take all 22 rounds in the 2-0 victory, and they will go to America as our 6th team at the Season 7 Finals.
Well, I say Team 1 definitely does not go home in shame here. They put up a huge fight against a huge team. And if I'm the other team going to Atlantic City, I'm looking at like, you know what, there's some weaknesses in Liquid I can take advantage of here. It is going to be potentially a struggle for them going forward because attacks especially have been a weakness for them on border, so now you know that. You know some of their defense strats on Bank because they obviously had to, this was for all the marbles.